offensive coordinator, or should they change this from the West Coast Shanahan system? Every time I hear somebody say that, I ask the question, who's quarterback? So if you want to change the system, I would say to you, well, who's the quarterback? Is Tannehill the quarterback? If Lamar Jackson is your quarterback, and I don't think he's going to be your quarterback, but if Lamar Jackson is going to be your quarterback, you don't run that system. So as much as we can sit here and say, oh, it should be this guy or it should be that guy or, this guy, Vrabel's, buddies with that guy, whatever, the first question I have is, who's your quarterback? Which takes me to kind of the bigger checklist that I think has to be addressed before even some items that we would think are macro issues, but really they're micro issues, can be decided upon. And I actually was going to reveal kind of the list of what the Titans have to figure out right now. Because even though they need to be finding coaches to hire because the teams that didn't make the playoffs across the league are now doing that, you do have a little bit of time to get your house in order because of the playoffs. But so you got to get it and you got to figure it out. And I had this checklist I was going to go over yesterday, and then all of a sudden Todd Downing got fired, and so that derailed our plans. But it doesn't really change the big picture. These are the decisions that have to be made at the level that the Titans are at right now. So we'll just start right off the top. Number one, the most important decision right now of the offseason for the Titans is to define the power structure of the organization, a.k.a. who is in charge. Who's the general manager? Who has more power, the general manager or Vrabel? Amy Adams Strunk said to Jim Wyatt of the team's website that she wants it to be a collaborative effort and that they'll both report to her. When I asked Mike Vrabel after John Robinson got fired who would have final say about a roster decision between he or Ryan Cowden, he said Amy does. So what that means is right now, Amy Adams Strunk makes the final call of this organization. And that means that she makes the final call on roster decisions. So who's the quarterback? That's Amy's call. Does Amy want Tannehill to be the quarterback? Basically, without being as direct about it as Jerry Jones is, that's what she's decided she's going to do for this organization. At least that's what it seems like. But that has to be defined. When the new general manager comes in here, it has to be defined how important that person's voice is. Is it more important than Vrabel's? Is it less important than Vrabel's? I think Vrabel was very hesitant yesterday to commit to anything because he doesn't know who that other person's going to be, and so he doesn't want to commit to Derrick Henry next year and then have that GM come in and say, I don't want Derrick Henry. But if you can't commit to Derrick Henry, you can't commit to Ryan Tannehill. Why would you go hire an offensive coordinator? You don't know what you're going to be running. So the first step is to define the power structure of the organization. Number two, the second most important thing that must be done, make a determination on Ryan Tannehill. It's binary. Is Tannehill your quarterback? Yes or no. Now, you don't have to make that decision right away, but you have to approach the decisions that you make as to whether or not Ryan Tannehill is your starter. If Ryan Tannehill is not going to be your starting quarterback, then that leaves you with a second set of options. If he is, then it gives you the first set of options. But that decision has to be made. And that decision is more important than who the offensive coordinator is. That decision is more important than who the O-line coach is. That decision is more important than what are you going to do with your offensive line. That decision is even more important than Derrick Henry. That is the second most important decision in the organization. Once you get past who's in charge, the second most important decision is what do you do with Tannehill? Now let's go through the first set of options if Ryan Tannehill is not Amy Adams Strunk's choice. Let's say, again, she's in charge and she doesn't want Tannehill anymore. Okay. If not Tannehill, what system do you want to run? Do you want to run what the Ravens run? You're going to have to get a quarterback like that. Do you want to run a system like Andy Reid runs, which is what they run in Philadelphia, which is what they ran in Indianapolis, which is what they ran in Chicago at the beginning of this year, and then they switched to something more Baltimore-centric with Luke Getsy, who knows your system? Do you want to stay with the Shanahan system, like San Francisco, like the Rams, like Atlanta, like Green Bay, like Cleveland, Cincinnati? Do you want to stay with that? So that's the first thing. What kind of system do you want to run? What kind of offense do you want to run? A lot of you out there talking about, we want to be a pass-first team. Okay? Well, now the resources have to go towards being a pass-first team, if that's the system you want to run. So that's the first question you've got to figure out if you don't have Tannehill. Second thing after that is, what do you do with Derrick Henry? I find it hard to believe that if the Titans don't retain Ryan Tannehill and they decide they're going to change their system, that Derrick Henry's probably not a part of their plans. So before we get into, well, he's the king, Jared, or they need to go draft a quarterback, or they need to, if Ryan's the starter next year, I think we all would assume Derrick Henry probably returns. If he's not, and you decide you want to change your system, what do you do with Derrick Henry? You can't run the run and shoot with Derrick Henry. And if Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry don't return, then are you basically going for a full rebuild? That if you decide, we're changing the system, we're changing the running back, we're changing the quarterback, we're just going to save all this money, build up this cap space, even though the cap's fake. We're going to build up all this cap space. We're going to trade for draft picks, and then are you going for a full-on rebuild? Which means that you don't need Byard. You don't need Simmons. You don't need Autry. You don't need any of those guys. Or are you running it back with Henry and Tannehill, and then you're just trying to build the reinforcements? Because it doesn't make a lot of sense to try to compete for the Super Bowl next year if you don't have Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill. So that's the first set of decisions that have to be made if you decide to move off of Tannehill. Now, again, the number one decision is to find who's in charge. Number two is to make a determination on Tannehill. Let's say you decide you're going to keep Tannehill. Now, here's the second set of decisions that you have to make. Number one, if you retain Tannehill and Henry, who is your coordinator? You're probably going to run the same system, which means that your coordinator will come from one of the teams that runs what you run. It may come from your team right now. It may be Tim Kelly. It may be Cliff Kingsbury because they run this system. It may be Nathaniel Hackett, who was the head coach in Denver, because they run this system. Bill O'Brien does not run this system. Now, could Bill O'Brien figure it out? I'm sure he could, but right now, he doesn't run it. So it wouldn't make a lot of sense to have Bill O'Brien be the offensive coordinator. Number two, if you retain Tannehill and Henry, how do you fix the offensive line? Right now, by my count, they've got one starter for next year under contract. It's Ben Jones, and he might retire. And then, who's the offensive line coach? I'd love for Mike Munchak to come back and be the offensive line coach. I do not know that he knows how to block in this system. The next question is then, what does the draft look like as a whole? Again, macro level, what does the draft look like? And I don't just mean, with the first 11 picks, where will you be able to upgrade your team instantly at 11, but also the whole draft class. Is it big on receivers? Is it big on offensive linemen? Is it big on DBs? Is it big on pass rushers? Is it deep with quarterbacks? I don't know. But you got to know this because you've got to know, hey, I've got the 11th overall pick. If I trade out of it and I move to 17 and I pick up a third and a fifth, will I be able to get starters because it's a deep class, or do I need to pick at 11 for whatever I need because it's a very shallow class and there aren't that many good players out there? You got to know the draft. Then you have to look at your own team. Which free agents of yours do you want to keep? Roquan Smith just got signed today to a massive contract extension by the Ravens. Clearly, they didn't want him to hit free agency. And so of your guys, of Hooper and Nate Davis and David Long and DeMarcus Walker and even Joshua Dobbs, which of your guys do you want to keep? And you have to make that decision. But again, you got to know who's in charge before you can make those decisions. You got to know who your coordinator is going to be so you know what system you're running. Dobbs, there's no point to keep Dobbs if Tannehill's out of here. So all these decisions have to be made after the previous decisions are made, or else you're jumping the gun here. What about the players on your team that you're going to cut? Bud Dupree, Lawan, Robert Woods, Zach Cunningham, Jamarco Jones, Randy Bullock. You got to look at that. Then once you do all of that, then you can look at your depth chart. And you can see the holes in the depth chart. And I'm not talking about taking guys who aren't starters and pretending that they will be starters next year. Chigakonkwo is not a starter in the NFL right now, folks. So you don't pencil him in as your tight end 1. But look at your depth chart after you do all of this and say, okay, how many holes are there to fill, and with what resources do we have to fill those holes? And that's when you look at the free agent market. And that's when you figure out, okay, this guy's probably going to be franchise tagged, so he's really not going to be out there. This guy's probably going to cost this much. This guy's going to cost that much. And then when you decide what you can't get in free agency, then you have to use the draft. And that is way down the list because the Titans don't even have a general manager yet. But that is then that next decision. And then finally, what do you do with your medical staff? Because the injuries the last 2 years, something's got to change. But that's at the very, very end of all of this. Right now, the Titans have a coach. They have an owner, and they have a coach, and they have a defensive tackle. And other than that, there's really nothing firm that this team has. But you have to make the big choices before you can start worrying about the other choices. It would make no sense to decide what you're going to do today at offensive coordinator if you don't know what system you want to run or who you want to run it. And that's where the Titans are. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So that's the checklist. And that's the order it's got to go in. They got to define the power of the organization. They got to make a determination on Tannehill. If not Tannehill, then what? If yes on Tannehill, then who's the coordinator? And what's the staff on offense look like? If not Tannehill, what kind of system do you want to run? If not Tannehill, what do you do with Derrick Henry? If Tannehill and Henry don't come back, do you go for the full rebuild? If you return Tannehill and Henry, then how do you fix the line? What do you do with the draft class? What free agents of yours do you want to keep? What does the rest of the free agent class look like? What players of yours do you not want to keep? What does your depth chart look like? And then what do you do about your team's medical staff? That's the order. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get your thoughts in on this. 615-737-1025. Chris Sanders will join us a day early. We'll get his reaction on the latest moves with the Titans, firing Todd Downing, firing the offensive line coach. We'll get into that as well. And coming up next, if I was the owner, so if I was the one who, again, number one, defined the power structure of the organization, if I was in charge, I'm going to tell you exactly what I would do. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Your home for the MTSU Blue Raiders is 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. Every touchdown.
Yes, touchdown.
Every three.
Free ball, yes, sir.
It all lives here.
Middle Tennessee.
You can also hear the Blue Raiders in the Borough on 97.5. Middle Tennessee Athletics on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
The choice is yours, Wednesdays at 8:45. Brought to you by Jarrett Companies. Now hiring experienced sprinkler experts. Go to jarrettfire.com. JARRETT fire.com. Jarrett Companies, a company above and beyond industry standards.
When Smashville wants to rock.
I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. Looking to the sky, saving, looking for a sign of life, 'cause it's too cold for you here.
We are Nashville's rock station. 102.9 The Buzz.
Want to kick off the new year without any credit card debt? If that sounds good to you, you can do it with Loan Pronto's Express Equity line of credit. Wipe out all those credit card bills right now. Hey, Willie Donick here. Rates are down, and it's a great move to get on more solid financial footing for the new year. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a portion of the equity you have and enjoy a rate that's a whole lot less than what the banks charge on credit cards. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity credit line, you can close in 7 to 10 days. You can access up to 95% of your home's equity. Use that money to pay off those high-interest credit card loans of any type. Credit cards, personal loans, car loans, whatever. Consolidate everything into one easy payment. Even if you did a whole total refi last year, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program and keep your main loan intact. Call Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
We try to stay cool by being on social media.
I'm with it. I'm hip.
Follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game and on Instagram at 1025 The Game Nashville.
Hey!
Oh, yeah, and like us on Facebook, too. You're listening to Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Are you hopeful of being back here next year and being this team's starting quarterback?
Of course, yeah. I'd love to be back here, and we'll just have to see what happens. Yeah, it should be good. Obviously, I need to keep rehabbing it, but
further surgery or anything?
No, it should be good.
Aaron's 40, Brady's 45. How many years you got in the tank, you think?
I definitely have some good years left. I feel really good. Even coming off this injury, feel really good and looking forward to some bright years ahead.
That was Ryan Tannehill yesterday. And so Tannehill says, hey, I'd like to be back. Don't know about the ankle, but it'll be fine. Just got to rehab it, which, again, a sprained ankle is a sprained ankle. And I think that the most important decision is for the Titans to define the power structure of the organization. As it looks right now, based on her words, Amy Adams Strunk is taking the bull by the horns, where she makes the big decisions, which is normally bad. I just want everybody out there to know. Normally, it's good when the owner really never gets involved, like the Steelers. Green Bay doesn't even have an owner. That's how it should be, that the owner only really gets involved when it's Dan Reeves and John Elway hate each other, and now you got to figure it out. If not, you're David Tepper in Carolina, you're Stephen Ross with the Dolphins, and I don't want to be run like that. But it sounds like that's the path it's going. Now, if I ran the team, after I hire the general manager, the first step is to make a determination on Tannehill. That is the number one thing. And if I owned the team, I'm running it back with Ryan Tannehill. So now I've made the decision. Now, finagle the cap number however the hell you want. I don't give a rat's ass. That cap's fake. But finagle the cap number. Tannehill honestly might take a pay cut, but I also wouldn't put it past him. He's due $27 million, and that's really bargain rate for a quarterback. But figure that out. I don't care. I'm returning with Tannehill unless I get the vibe that, hey, Tom Brady's going to want to come here or Aaron Rodgers is going to want to come here, and it won't cost an arm and a leg in order to get him. Or if my general manager and scouts tell me that with the 11th pick in the draft, if I can move to 7, that the third best quarterback in this class is going to be an all-pro caliber guy. And remember that Mahomes was not the first quarterback in his class. Mitch Trubisky was. And Josh Allen wasn't the first quarterback in his class. Baker Mayfield was. So Bryce Young might not be that guy. But unless I'm being told, oh, my God, this is the opportunity, I'm returning with Tannehill. And I'm returning with Derrick Henry. And I am going and getting a coordinator that runs this system. And I am getting an offensive line coach that can evaluate offensive linemen. Floyd used to always tell me, because I asked him, back in the day, he used to be able to get offensive linemen like that. There was a guy by the name of Gennaro DiNapoli, who was a backup offensive lineman out of nowhere. The Titans one year didn't have a starting center. They just put DiNapoli in there, kind of like what they tried to do with Aaron Brewer this year. And they just put DiNapoli in there, and he was great. He signed a big contract with the Cowboys. And then the Titans turned around and just drafted Justin Hartwig in the third or fourth round the next year. And he was the center. And I said, how did you do it like that? And he said, well, I had Mike Munchak. And I would, anytime I thought about drafting an offensive lineman, I would have Mike Munchak evaluate that lineman. I would have him come in for a visit and spend time with Munch. And Mike Munchak would be able to know if this guy could do it or not. Now, I don't know if that's why Keith Carter got fired, because the track record of offensive line draft picks has been horrendous with the Titans of late. I have a pretty good feeling that's part of the reason why John Robinson got fired. But I'm running it back. So I need the zone blocking scheme, and I need an offensive line coach that can evaluate talent that will fit with what I do. Then I look at free agency and I look at my own free agents. I want Nate Davis back. Even though I'm not the biggest Nate Davis fan in the world, it's a lot easier to bring Nate Davis back than it is to go find another guard and hope that he will gel with your offensive line. I want David Long back. I know I'm going to have to pay Jeffrey Simmons. Now, there will be negotiations, and it will not be easy. And I know the fans are going to be pissed at me during the spring when Simmons doesn't show up and he wants a new contract. And I'm talking about fifth-year options and franchise tags. I know that. But, again, I own the team, and I know I'm going to sign Simmons, but I have to execute a little bit of my leverage. I look around, who's going to take a pay cut, who needs to take a pay cut. Robert Woods, if you want to be here, you got to take a pay cut. But I might keep him around. And then finally, once I get through that, how many holes will I have? And then we look at free agency, and then we look at the draft, and we figure out how we can fill those holes. The idea of rebuilding around here, and Mike Vrabel would go kicking and screaming if you went up to him and you said, Mike, I want to tear it down from the studs and I want to rebuild. Because Vrabel's probably going to get fired if that happens. But the idea of that, I'm not interested in. People will say to me, well, Jared, you say that the Predators need to rebuild and that just making the playoffs isn't good enough. Why is it so different in the NFL? And I say they're two totally different sports. It's not an apples-to-apples comparison. In the NFL, you only have to win one game. That's it. You only have to beat the Baltimore Ravens and MVP Lamar Jackson in 14-2. You only have to beat them one time. In hockey, you have to beat a team 4 out of 7. The better team is going to win almost 95% of the time. And the times where they go 7, it's the teams are pretty much even. Like that's not how the NFL works. I can tell you right now, I think Cincinnati's going to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC, and I think San Francisco's going to go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. But I have by next week, that could be gone. Football is a different sport. Plus, the contracts in football are not real. The contracts in hockey are. And so I'm not rebuilding with this team. The way I look at it is with all of the freaking bullcrap problems, with a no left guard and a terrible rookie at right tackle and an injured quarterback and a bad offensive coordinator and the worst special teams in the NFL. With all of those things together, I was 7-3 and had just humiliated Aaron Rodgers on national TV in Lambeau Field. How do I get back to that? How do I get back to that Chiefs game where my defense was going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and this time have a quarterback in there that can actually throw a forward pass? How do I get back to last Saturday with 2 minutes and 50 however many seconds left, where I'm standing right there on the edge of the playoffs, where I would play a team that I lost to by the slimmest of margins a month ago? That's what I'm thinking about. 2 years ago, I had the number 1 seed in the NFL. Not all those players are gone. Not all those players are bad. You can't undo the A.J. Brown trade, but now you try to figure out how you fix it. You know, Philadelphia, who everybody loves, they made a similar mistake. People forget this. They drafted a wide receiver out of TCU by the name of Jalen Reagor. You know who went with the next pick? Justin Jefferson. Why did they have to trade for A.J. Brown? Because they missed on Jalen Reagor. That's what the Titans have to figure out. But I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not restarting. And if I run it back with Henry and Tannehill, I know there's a chance I might not be good next year. And if I'm not, the league will tell me, because everybody will beat me, and I'll have the 5th overall pick, and then I'll go from there and get a young quarterback. But right now, this team has shown me too many signs that they've got the chance to be good. I've got a coach who's in his prime, who might be one of the best coaches in the league. I'm not rebuilding. I've got a starting quarterback who's as good as every other starting quarterback in the league, not named Brady, Rodgers, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, or Jackson. Or Herbert. I'm fine. I'm not tearing it down. I'm not trying to do what Floyd would call swapping spit and going out and moving off of Tannehill for Derek Carr or Baker Mayfield. I'm not doing it. Now, if the opportunity arises that I can get Tom Brady, fine. But if not, Tannehill and Henry are getting another year. This core, Tannehill, Henry, Byard, Simmons, Autry, they get another year. And they should. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Let's get to your phones next. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. Plus, Joe said something this morning, or at least I'm told Joe said something this morning, about the offensive coordinator position that I do wonder if he's reporting or if he's thinking. And apparently that's a new thing with Joe, so we'll get to that. Stillman and Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
This is Mikhail Kralund, and this is Smashville.
And the rebound shoveled in by Mikhail Gronlund. And the Predators have tied it up on the power play.
This is the flagship of the Nashville Predators Radio Network. ESPN 1025, The Game.
This is for the men who never settle, the ones who believe only quitters end a game in a tie, the type of guys who choose the bar with the biggest TVs to overcompensate for theirs at home. This is the Lodge mentality. This is Twin Peaks.
An extensive bourbon category to top shelf spirits and cocktails served over ice balls, local craft beers, and handcraft Venturous drink menu. And don't forget about their 29-degree man-sized draft.
I want you to add this to your New Year's resolution. Win money in 2023 with Superbook Sports. Superbook has over 3 decades of sports wagering experience in Las Vegas, so you'll get the best odds anywhere as we head into the football playoffs. Plus, check out the special odds boosts and promotions at Superbook.com. Make 2023 the year when you win money from Vegas. Download the Superbook Sports app now and place your bets. Visit Superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789.
Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Subscription required.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 90% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/radio. At Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the biggest brands at 90% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but 90% cheaper. It's the same medication you get from your doctor, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/radio. That's 4hims.com/radio for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/RADIO.
Hey, Smashville. Join 102.5 The Game and the Nashville Predators Energy Team at Nobles in East Nashville for the official Bud Light Watch Party tomorrow night at 6. There'll be plenty of beer specials, prizes, and chances to win Preds tickets to an upcoming home game. Go Preds!
When that door closed behind me and I was free, the main thing I wanted to do was just re-enter society, get a job, and see my family.
It's okay.
There's a new state office of re-entry in Tennessee, specifically to help folks like me get jobs. Go to tnworkready.com or visit your local American Job Center. Re-entry is a normal thing, and it's okay.
Brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
tnworkready.com.
On the Wednesday edition of Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace, we'll continue to look ahead for what's next for the Titans. New offensive coordinator, new general manager, what direction does this team want to get in? Plus, of course, your thoughts all show long. Coming up on the Wednesday edition of Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace.
This is Greg McElroy, and you're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
To remain as it was with the previous GM, or are you looking for that to increase?
Well, I'm just looking to try to bring in the best people and the best players that we possibly can.
How collaborative was it?
Again, just going forward, just trying to find the best GM right now. That's the next step. Trying to work through the staff, work through the players, work through meetings. And then when they ask me to be involved, I'm comfortable and excited to be involved in the process, not about where we were or what we did.
Mike Vrabel's telling you right there, again, the checklist on what they have to do, the number one thing is define the power structure of the organization. And Amy Adams Strunk says she wants collaboration. They'll both report to her. What that means is she's in charge. She is now the David Tepper, who owns Carolina. She is now the David Tepper of the Tennessee Titans. I don't like it. Just being blunt. I love Amy. I think she's a great person. I do not know what she knows about left guard. And the reason that I struggle with this is because ultimately, if there is a big decision in which the two of them cannot agree upon, it means it's going to her. And I don't want to be the Miami Dolphins. I want to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the way the Pittsburgh Steelers are run, now look, the Rooneys are in on all the big decisions. You know, the quarterbacks and things like that. You know, do we draft Dan Marino? Do we draft Kenny Pickett? But ultimately, the way the Steelers are run, the general manager, Kevin Colbert, for years, he was the guy who was in charge. Now it's a guy by the name of Omar Khan. Mike Tomlin, they work together. But ultimately, Colbert's in charge. And now in this case, it's Omar Khan. And that's how the Steelers have always been run. And the Steelers know the importance of head coach more than anybody. That's why they never fire head coaches, because they know the importance of the guy who deals with the players every day. Bill Polian, who's a Hall of Fame general manager, I heard him say a week ago that the head coach is more important than the general manager because the head coach touches the players every single day. But you got to define the power structure first before you can go forward with Derrick Henry or Ryan Tannehill. Before I think you can go forward with naming an offensive coordinator, because what if the general manager you bring in doesn't want to run the system that you run? What if he wants a mobile quarterback? What if he wants, instead of Ryan Tannehill, and Tannehill's mobile-ish, but he wants to put together an offense like Baltimore? Well, now what are you going to do? What if he, the general manager you want to bring in, and I don't necessarily believe this myself, but I'm also not a quarterback guru, nor am I a scout. But what if the next general manager loves Will Levis, right? And he is convinced Will Levis is the guy. Well, then Liam Cohen should be the offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans because he runs your system and he coached him at Kentucky. And wouldn't you want all the terminology and everything else to be the same if that's the future of your organization? If you're going to take the 11th overall pick, you're going to move up to 6, which means you're probably going to trade next year's first, and you're going to draft Will Levis, then don't you want to have the coordinator that would make him the most successful? So those are the next steps before we get into, they should do the people text in the text line, all that. What about the training staff and the medical staff they need to evaluate that. But it's not like there's just an immediate decision that has to be made on that. General manager, what you're going to do with your quarterback, what about the other quarterbacks? Those decisions have to be made. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Michael has been waiting patiently and is going to kick us off today. Thank you for calling 615-737-1025. Go ahead, Michael.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Right before I get into it, I did see that Liam Cohen's going back to Kentucky, though, so I doubt that they're going to try to get Will Levis, just based on your theory.
I mean, you don't think that you can go get Kentucky's offensive coordinator to be your offensive coordinator?
That is true. I just saw that he went on Twitter that he went back to Kentucky today, so I was just throwing that out there before I get
Sure.
the
Liam Cohen thing has been rumored for like 3 months. The thing about coaching, Bobby Petrino just took the UNLV offensive coordinator job, and 15 days later decided to take the Texas A&M offensive coordinator job. If you want Liam Cohen, and if you're going to draft Will Levis and you run this system, I wouldn't be against it. You can probably get him. But continue.
That's fair. I just wanted to ask you, I think that there's, off the top of my head, there's three people on this team that are prime to get cut before the start of the year, and I think that's Taylor Lewan, Bud Dupree, and Randy Bullock. I just wanted to ask you who you thought were other people that you think were probably not going to be on this team that we're going to cut, and I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Okay, so I appreciate your call, but again, you're putting the cart before the horse. I mean, there are so many people out here that are like, Jared, we need to cut Taylor Lewan and we need to cut Bud Dupree and we need the cap savings. And you can't do that until March anyways. Who's the general manager? Who's the quarterback? Those things are more important right now. Because your general manager that comes in here may love Bud Dupree. He may think that's exactly what you need and that a new medical staff. That it's not Bud Dupree's fault that he got hurt every 3 weeks this season. It's the medical staff's fault. So instead, let's see if Bud Dupree will take a pay cut and keep him at outside backer because it'll be easier to get a new medical staff and keep the current outside backer that we have at a reduced salary than it would be to go out and try to find a new outside backer. Those are the discussions that have to be had. Not the, okay, I don't know who the coordinator's going to be. I don't know who the GM's going to be. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. I don't know who the running back's going to be. Who do you think's going to get cut this year, Jared? Too soon. By the way, the answer to your question, Dupree, Lewan, Woods, Cunningham, Jones, Bullock. And that Jones is Jamarco Jones. You may have forgotten about him. I don't think he played a game this season. Boy, Floyd would have hated him. But with all of those, I mean, the question has to come back to, okay, well, Robert Woods. Now, they redid his contract right before John Robinson got fired, so now there's a little dead cap money on there. So do you just go ahead and commit to Robert Woods for next year, or do you ask Robert Woods to take a pay cut? Or do you just think Robert Woods isn't very good, and so instead you decide to move on? Now, I'll go back to Liam Cohen, for instance. If Liam Cohen, again, from the Rams, now he's Kentucky's offensive coordinator, that doesn't mean he can't be your offensive coordinator. If you hire him or if Sean McVay leaves the Rams and you raid their staff for an offensive coordinator, don't you think that guy would have a comfort level with Robert Woods and he might want to keep him? So while I was incredibly disappointed with Robert Woods' production this past season, and I would probably not pay Robert Woods the money that he is owed for this upcoming season because I don't think he can get that on the open market. If my new coordinator really liked Robert Woods or had a comfort level with Robert Woods or thought that the last coordinator sucked so bad that he can get the best out of Robert Woods, then that changes my opinion about Robert Woods. That's why I keep telling you, this is not just, okay, Jared, who do we need to trade for? We need to go get Aaron Rodgers. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Who is going to do that? Texter says, you say, why rebuild, Jared? Need a left tackle, a left guard, a wide receiver too, and a cheaper running back. Shouldn't take a neurosurgeon to handle that with free agency and 6 draft picks. That comes from Andrew. Let me say this about rebuilding. This is why you don't really see it much in the NFL. Rebuilding gets you fired. That's why the Predators are not rebuilding. David Poile knows that if he makes the playoffs every year, it'll be the same dog and pony show where they make the playoffs by 3 points, they get in there, they lose in 5 or 6 games, and then after the year's over, David Poile goes to the microphone and goes, gosh, I think we're so close. We're so close. We went to 5 games, but we lost one of those in overtime when the refs screwed us. So if you really go back, we're so close. And then he keeps his job. If the Predators are at the bottom of the league, David Poile's not going to keep his job, no matter who the owner is. That's why they don't rebuild. Because everybody who rebuilds in sports ends up getting fired. Mike Vrabel is not going to rebuild. Because Mike Vrabel will get fired. And he doesn't want to do that. So I keep hearing people say things like, oh, yeah, you got to rebuild, and this team needs to start over. And I was actually a little surprised when Vrabel was so non-committal about rebuilding yesterday and non-committal about what they're going to do with Derrick Henry. But I understand. He wants the new general manager to feel like he has a say in what they're going to do because he is going to have a say in what they do, and Amy has made that abundantly clear. Now, again, I'm not sure that I like the power dynamic the way it's built, but that's what he's been told, and that's how he's going to operate. Wes in Clarksville says, I think a lot of the offensive players are better than we think. They just have a crappy coordinator. I don't disagree. And I think that is something that you do have to take into account. I had somebody tell me, A.J. Brown is better in Philadelphia than he was in Tennessee. Why? The coaching. And somebody told me A.J. Brown might be better somewhere else than Philadelphia. And I said, why? It's a quarterback. Put A.J. Brown in Green Bay. See what happens. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Chris Sanders going to join us earlier this week. TD's going to join us earlier this week. He's going to join us on Wednesday instead of Thursday. Chris will join us on Tuesday instead of Wednesday this week. With all the Titans news, we'll get Chris's thoughts. Todd Downing out. Who knows about Henry? Who knows about Tannehill? We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
It's a new year and a new game. Robbie and Rexroad from 6 to 9.
I don't know whether to be proud of you or to tell you to leave the room. Both would be appropriate.
Chase and Michelle from 9 to 11.
Did you look at what the other teams are doing?
That's a player I want to keep an eye on.
Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace from 11 to 2.
You're the best running back in the league.
That's one you really need to win.
This is the way we were built. And Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman from 2 to 6.
Really the greatest player in the history of the team.
It's your new weekday lineup now on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Now is a fantastic time to sell in Nashville, but you can't do it without the intel. And no one has better intel than the Gary Ashton team. You may be wondering, what is this intel I keep hearing about? Intel so you can sell your home without any staging or showings. Intel on where to find your next home so you can sell your current one while the market's hot. Intel that helps you win the buyer battle and cash in on your home equity now. Everyone else is getting the same information and competing for the same properties. GaryAshton.com gives you the edge with the best real estate intel in Nashville. No one else even comes close. Plus, the Gary Ashton team is the official real estate agent for the Preds. Get the confidence to sell your home and find your dream address without the stress. Call the Gary Ashton team with RE/MAX Advantage today at 615-301-1650 or visit GaryAshton.com. And remember, don't sell without the intel.
Hey, it's Jared. Are you looking to move? If so, do yourself a favor and reach out to my friends at TriStar Moving. You can be assured your move will be stress-free because they've got new utility vans to help with pack jobs to separate your high-value or fragile items from the bulk of your furniture, and their movers are carefully picked and highly trained. No one in the game is doing this. TriStar Moving is raising the standard in the moving industry. When you're ready to move, give them a call. TriStar Moving, 615-640-1219, or online at nationalmoving.org/radio and tell them Jared Stillman referred you for 10% off. That's TriStar Moving.
Happy New Year and Happy New You from Houston Clinic Orthopedics, conveniently located where you live and work, with various locations in and around the Nashville area. Houston's physicians specialize in spine, joint replacement, knee, hip, upper extremity, and many other orthopedic conditions. At Houston Clinic Orthopedics, they strictly adhere to all CDC guidelines for the patient's and staff safety. To experience world-class orthopedic care and see a list of all Houston physicians and specialties, visit their website at tn.houston.com and book your appointment online today.
Want to kick off the new year without any credit card debt? If that sounds good to you, you can do it with Loan Pronto's Express Equity Line of Credit. Wipe out all those credit card bills right now. Hey, Willie Donick here. Rates are down, and it's a great move to get on more solid financial footing for the new year. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a portion of the equity you have and enjoy a rate that's a whole lot less than what the banks charge on credit cards. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days. You can access up to 95% of your home's equity. Use that money to pay off those high-interest credit card loans of any type. Credit cards, personal loans, car loans, whatever. Consolidate everything into one easy payment. Even if you did a whole total refi last year, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program and keep your main loan intact. Call Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
They're insightful.
To me, you got a left guard situation you got to figure out.
Credible.
I trust this guy more than this guy.
But sometimes they just argue.
Why do you like the NFL playoffs? Those teams lose.
I don't want college football to be the NFL.
When they get...
Robbie Stanley and Joe Rexroad are Robbie and Rexroad. Weekdays from 6 to 9 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Strong opinions, and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company. Hey, join 102.5, 106.3 The Game tomorrow night at Nobles, located at 974 Main Street in East Nashville, for a Preds away game watch party. As the Preds take on the Maple Leafs at 6:30, come watch the game, get some Preds gear, and also enter to win tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. They have Wednesday night specials, which include 2-for-1 drafts, Wells, and wine, as well as Bud Light buckets for only $15. That's right. Enjoy that. So where do the Titans go from here? I've told you all, when people start throwing out names at offensive coordinator about, they ought to go get Pep Hamilton, I'm like, who's the quarterback? And Vrabel will not commit to Ryan Tannehill being his quarterback next year, or Derrick Henry being his running back, because everything that he does is going to have to be a collaboration with the next general manager. And if Tannehill, or if Vrabel says Tannehill's quarterback, I don't know how the next general manager will feel about that. And Vrabel doesn't want to start off on the wrong foot. Chris Sanders joins us now, former Titans receiver. Chris, what do you make of the state that the Titans are currently in following their loss to Jacksonville on Saturday?
I mean, they're in a desperate state. And the thing about it is, I'm trying to figure out what the identity of the team is and what direction they're going. But before you can even have the direction of the team, you got to get a general manager that has vision and the goals on what they want to accomplish. So I really don't know what's going on. We don't know what they're going to do with Henry. We don't know what they're going to do with Simmons. We don't know what they're going to do with Bayer. We don't know all these things. It's just a lot of things that are thrown up in the air. But it all starts from the beginning. Who's the general manager? Who makes the choice? Who makes the right choice? Who makes the right decision? And whatever it is.
You know, I wrote out a checklist, basically, of where the Titans go from here, Chris, and the number one thing is to define the power structure of the organization.
Absolutely.
You know, is it GM who's in charge? Is it Vrabel who's in charge? It sounds like, just from some of the things Amy has said, that she is going to probably have a more active role. She's in charge. So I'm going to say Chris Sanders is in charge. What direction are you going in with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry?
I mean, I think you stay with Ryan Tannehill, because if you look at what they're trying to do, I mean, no, let me rewind that again. What are they trying to do? What is the identity of the team? Are they trying to be a spread team, or are they trying to be a drop back pass team? It all depends on what they want to do of the identity of the team. But those questions aren't answered because you don't have the general manager. And I want to kind of piggyback on what you're talking about the power, who makes the decision. I think that, you know, Amy Andy Shrunk is in charge, but I don't think she makes the decision, because just like what you talked about earlier, she doesn't know what a left guard does. And I say this in a respectful way. She doesn't know what a left guard does. She doesn't know what a receiver does. They just give her the information and say, okay, we're thinking about, you know, picking this guy. But at the end of the day, the general manager and the head coach makes a decision. I just think she's just in charge.
Yeah, but I don't think that she's going to put one of those two guys above the other guy. And if that's the case, then she is going to be playing a more active role. At least that's my impression of it.
Yeah, but how though? But how though? When you have two guys, and I say this respectfully, how can you say that if there's two guys that are in charge, but who's going to be, like, just say, okay, we're in the draft and we want to get a quarterback. Who's going to make the decision? Is it going to be Amy? Is it going to be the general manager, or is it going to be Mike Vrabel? Who has the power to make that decision? That's where the answers.
My vibe is that it's going to be. The GM is going to do his job and evaluate it. They're going to have their meetings. He and Vrabel are going to talk about it. Right. And she's going to hope that Vrabel and the GM, almost like a marriage, you know, will work it out. But if they can't, if Floyd Reese wants Jay Cutler and Jeff Fisher wants Matt Leinart, then Bud Adams is the one who's going to come in and make the call as to who they want. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I think's going to happen.
But then why did they let J-Rob go if they already had that?
Because I believe, and I could be wrong about this.
Right.
I believe John Robinson had it in his contract that he had final say on all personnel decisions.
I think so too. And I think after that Eagles game when they lost, everybody keeps going back to, well, it's A.J. Brown, it's Farley, and it's, all those things. I think it came down to there was a argument after that game to say, you know what, I want to do this, you want to do that, and they couldn't come together, so one of them guys had to go.
If I look at it like this, I'm glad you brought that up. Chris Sanders is with us, former Titans receiver. I do believe that the reason why John Robinson was fired when he was fired was because there was no way to take that power away from him without firing him. There was no
but-
way to basically say, hey, from now on, you have to check with me before you make decisions. That's a demotion. And that John Robinson would have said, wait a minute, no, that's not in my contract. And so the only way to do that, that's why those guys get that in their contract.
Mm-hmm.
That's my guess is why they did what they did. And if John Robinson, wasn't going to be willing to give up what he had negotiated,
Right.
I'm not mad at him for that. But I do think that Robinson had full autonomy and authority,
Absolutely.
and I do not think the next general manager will have that.
Yeah, because it just doesn't make any sense, Jared. Okay, everybody's upset about the Caleb Farr thing, Isaiah Wilson, all those things. But why do you sign him to a contract in February? He must have been doing something good that Amy liked. So then later on down the road, why would you fire him? I really believe, and I say this, I'm not saying this actually happened, but I really believe that Mike Vrabel and J-Rob had a power struggle. But the one thing I don't understand, the front that was in front of us saying, we're joined at the hip and we both make decisions and this and that. But watch Mike Vrabel's body language when they let A.J. Brown go in the draft. Look at his body language. That tells you, man, I respect the decision that J-Rob made, but I hate it. Look at his body language.
I mean, I think I go back to yesterday. Vrabel was asked a question about self-reflection, and he started off going down one path talking about, being competitive with 23 guys out of 48 that were active for the game Saturday that were signed off the street or were on the practice squad. And then he stopped himself because he knew what road he was going down. Right, and he was like, none of us did well enough. It was basically, Mike, how do you evaluate yourself? Well, I had us playing really, really good with a bunch of practice squad players. But you know what? None of us were good enough. It wasn't good enough. It wasn't. That's the road he was going down. I think Mike Vrabel thinks Mike Vrabel's doing a great job. And I do agree with what you said about there being some sort of a power struggle, but I don't think it was direct. I don't think it was Mike going to Amy being like, I can't work with this guy. I think it was more so Amy noticed that, arguments that Mike was on the right side of kept coming out, the reality. Like when she's in the draft room and Mike doesn't want to trade A.J. Brown, but John does. And she's got to go with John because it's probably in his contract that he gets the final say. So then that's probably where she realized, okay, I've got to help Mike out more. That's just a thought I have.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the reason and know that there's argument, but we could sense that there was some friction between those two. Maybe Amy saw that and said, you know what? Okay, they may have an argument, had a disagreement, and she sensed that, okay, there's something going on between these two guys. And I'm not saying that she acted out of emotion, but actuality, she acted out of emotion because she let them go in the middle of the season when they're 7-3, and they have a chance to win the AFC South. They had a 98% chance to win the AFC South, and they lost all those games. And I think the reason why they lost all those games is because when they fired J-Rod, it was a big distraction. And what the heck is going on and getting fired in the middle of situations like that.
Last one for you, Chris Sanders. What do you think about the offensive staff changes, Todd Downing and Keith Carter out?
I mean, you got to make it. I mean, you have to make the decision. And as a coach, I've been coaching for a long time. Nobody wants to see a coach get fired. But at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for the team. And I just think that, the situation with the offensive coordinator, it didn't gel. I mean, you can tell when he was play calling, he was a little flustered a little bit. But you just have to make those tough decisions. The offensive line guy's gone, and who in the heck is the offensive skill guy? What does he do?
I have no idea.
I don't know what he does, but you better believe there's going to be some more changes coming.
Really?
It's not over. Some more changes is coming.
What makes you think that?
I don't know. It's just that you just look at the organization. It's in disarray right now. And sometimes some people become the scapegoat. And I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but it just feels that way. Because when you be in the organization, when you play with a team and you've been around, when you have that feeling that something else is going to happen, that's going to drop your jaw, something as well is going to happen.
Wow. Chris Sanders, former Titans receiver, always joining us a day early with all the Titan news. Great stuff, Chris. We'll talk next week.
Appreciate you, my man. Thanks, bro.
Yep, Chris Sanders joining us on the program. He thinks it's not over, which gives me hope for Craig Aukerman, that they could fire him too, because it's been time. 615-737-1025. We'll get back into your phone. 615-737-1025. Plus, the Titans have options at quarterback. We'll get to that coming up because they got a lot of them. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
You love the game.
The doors on the board. Touchdown at TSU.
We live the game.
Going up against that defense, he can make some plays and take that next step.
We are
A gunny performance. Do your job.
And the Tigers regain the lead.
The Game. Nashville's best sports talk, 1025 and 1063 The Game, and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Hi guys, it's Mark with Hillside Medical Clinic. Are you struggling with erectile dysfunction and sick of the pills? Well, we have a major medical advancement that has helped thousands of men. Our wave technology is backed by 60 clinical studies, including from Cambridge University. It's been shown to increase blood flow by repairing blood vessels. No pills and no side effects. If you're ready to put a stop to your ED, call us now, and not only will the assessment and blood flow ultrasound be free, but will also include something unique that produces powerful results in the bedroom. You're going to love that one, guys. Trust me. This unprecedented offer is worth $600, but it's free to those who call in the next 2 minutes. Call 615-576-5000. That's 615-576-5000. Guys, put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and get your life back. Call Hillside Medical Clinic now to qualify. 615-576-5000.
Time for the Preds Report.
Presented by Newton Nissan.
Max Erz here with your Tuesday Preds Report. The Predators got their first shutout of the season last night, beating the Ottawa Senators 3-0. That's the Preds' fourth straight win, and they're now 3-0 to start this 5-game road trip. The Predators scored twice in the first period, but Philip Forsberg sealed it in the third. Forsberg on the left, shoots and scores! Philip Forsberg makes it 3-0 Preds. UC Saros made 38 saves and has now made 102 saves on 105 shots in his last 2 starts, both wins. That's pretty good for our Smashville All-Star. Next up, tomorrow night in Toronto at 6:30 against the Leafs as the Preds try and run this road trip to 4-0.
All the best car deals in Smashville start at Newton Nissan. Visit them at Newton Nissan of Gallatin or Newton Nissan South in Shelbyville.
This is Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
1025 The Game.
It's simple. If you want to drive in Tennessee, the law requires financial responsibility. You cannot afford to drive uninsured. The state of Tennessee now has a new system that can actually verify your vehicle's coverage. Without insurance, you could pay fines and even lose the right to drive your car. Be responsible. Drive insured, Tennessee.
Brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Revenue in cooperation with the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne.
Bobby and Rex Road. Chase and Michelle.
Caroline, Willie, D-Bay,
Stillman and Company.
Nashville's best sports talk.
Crank it up.
1025 and 1063.
Cranks it, he scores.
On both sides of the one big possession.
Touchdown, Middle Tennessee.
The Game.
a Cromwell media station.
Where you have a voice.
He had a competent coaching staff. You just play terrible and you keep playing.
And we have strong opinions.
What a whiny freaking crybaby response.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk, 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, 1025, 1063 The Game. Streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to Superbook Sports, live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. So yesterday, Mike Vrabel was asked about Ryan Tannehill, and he was asked about his optimism in if Ryan Tannehill could be the starting quarterback next year, and he worded it kind of funnily. Is that the right word, Ian?
I don't know if funnily is quite it, but yeah, something like that.
He worded it in a very peculiar fashion. Here's what Mike Vrabel said yesterday.
Are you optimistic that Ryan will be your starting quarterback next year?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of guys here that are under contract. We have a lot of guys that want Ryan to get as healthy as he possibly can, and then go and be our quarterback and figure out things that are going to help us win. And then that's the case for a lot of guys. A lot of guys are that are under contract that finished the season not out there. So let's get everybody healthy and let's see where everybody's at, and then we can make some decisions.
Ryan Tannehill has a sprained ankle. Okay, I know he had surgery on it. That's a very common surgery. Ryan Tannehill's going to be fine. So Mike Vrabel kind of fished out of that one about optimistic of whether or not Tannehill's going to come back by, he ended the season hurt. So, he's under contract, but let's get him healthy and let's see. And I said, whoa. No. We're not fishing out that easily. Here's my follow-up and Vrabel's response.
So you don't feel comfortable right now committing to Ryan as the starter for next year?
Well, I mean, he's our starting quarterback. If he was healthy, he's our starting quarterback. You know what I mean? So that's all that I can tell you. And right now, there's a lot of guys that aren't healthy and that didn't finish the game. I mean, I think we're going to talk a lot of hypotheticals 2 days after our last game. So, happy to talk a lot about things that I can answer, but I can't answer things that, are in the future.
He absolutely can answer whether or not he thinks Ryan Tannehill is going to be a starting quarterback next year. It wasn't if you think Ryan Tannehill, it's a sprained ankle. But there's a reason why Mike Vrabel didn't really make any commitment on the record yesterday. And it was different when it came to Tannehill than it was Henry or even rebuilding, because the quarterback position is so much different. And Ryan Tannehill is a little sensitive when it comes to criticism. And it's not sensitive like he'll turn into a passive-aggressive, like Aaron Rodgers. It's more so that it affects Tannehill if you don't believe in him. So he had to kind of massage that issue yesterday. But the reality of where the Titans stand is they will have options at the quarterback position. Minnesota and Atlanta and some of these other places, they handcuffed themselves so much by dead cap money and while the cap is fake, the money itself is real. And then you have to pay even more money to dig yourself out of these holes, that they really couldn't move on from Kirk Cousins. Even if the new general manager and new coach that came in this year wanted to move off of Kirk Cousins, they couldn't have. And in Atlanta, Arthur Smith had to basically give up a year of his career because of what it took to get rid of Matt Ryan. Now, it wasn't exactly the cap because they went after Deshaun Watson, but that's how the quarterback position works in this league. And so the Titans have options. The Titans have a lot of options. They have options with Tannehill. Tannehill, I thought, played well enough this year that if the Titans were to release him, I guarantee you somebody signs Ryan Tannehill to be their starting quarterback. I think the Titans may be able to trade Ryan Tannehill. But they don't have to make a decision today. And the GM used to always tell me, you never make a decision until you have to. And right now, Ryan Tannehill, as Mike Vrabel pointed out yesterday, is under contract, which means that no matter what happens, they have a starting quarterback for next year as of right now. Which leads me to all of the different options that they're going to have to entertain. And this is why they need to get a general manager, because things move in this league very quickly. Remember Matthew Stafford. In fact, Sean McVay had a press conference after they lost to Green Bay in the playoffs. He was asked if Jared Goff was still his quarterback. I looked it up this morning. His answer was, he's our quarterback right now. Not that different from what Mike Vrabel said yesterday. Jared Goff a week later was not the quarterback. But movement will start to happen. They're going to try to trade Derek Carr with the Raiders because his contract money kicks in right after the Super Bowl. I don't think they'll find a taker, and then they'll have to release him. But this is why they got to get hurried up on the GM search. But they've got to figure out what they're going to do, and here are the options they're going to have. Number one, there's the shot to the moon. I don't think they're going to get Aaron Rodgers. I don't think they're going to get Tom Brady. I don't think they're going to get Lamar Jackson. But I didn't think that Tom Brady was going to end up in Tampa Bay. In fact, I don't even think Tom Brady thought that Tom Brady was going to end up in Tampa Bay. So you never know. And it's just like GM and coach. There's only 32 of these jobs. And if Brady doesn't want the one in Tampa Bay after this weekend, it's one of 31. Maybe he does want you. Maybe he doesn't feel like there's anywhere else that he would want to go. Maybe nobody else would want him, just like the last time he was a free agent. Lamar Jackson, I think the Ravens are going to try to sign him. I think for 2 years they've been trying to sign him. But Lamar has not budged. And we saw with A.J. Brown that if the deal doesn't get done, no matter how much the team says, we're not going to trade him, we're not going to trade him, we're not going to trade him, it doesn't mean that they're not going to trade him. And Aaron Rodgers, who the hell knows? Apparently he didn't do his spot on Pat McAfee today because Pat McAfee said he is in meetings with the Packers for the next 2 days, and apparently they're very extensive meetings. So that's the first set of options they'll have, is the shot to the moon. If Aaron Rodgers wants to come here, as much as I really can't stand Aaron's personality, he's still Aaron Rodgers. We'll have to discuss it. The second thing I would say is an option is something that I would call, or the GM used to refer to as, swapping spit. And I think you kind of have an idea what that means. Am I really upgrading if I move off of Ryan Tannehill to get Derek Carr? Am I upgrading if I move off of Ryan Tannehill to get Baker Mayfield? Probably not. So, I mean, it'd be nice to have somebody new, especially Mayfield, who's young, but is Baker Mayfield really a better player than Ryan Tannehill? Probably not. The reality is there's quarterbacks in this league who are just freaking great. Herbert, Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, Brady, Rodgers, a seventh if you want to count Lamar in his own way, and then everybody else is just kind of, they're fine. Dak's fine, Trevor Lawrence is fine, Derek Carr's fine, Tannehill's fine, Baker's fine, and then there's guys who just stink, like Washington. So do I really want to swap spit? But that's an option. If they like Derek Carr more, if the new general manager has an affinity for Baker, if he's got a comfort level with one of those guys, you never know. Josh McDaniels tried to move off of Jay Cutler to go with Matt Castle because he had comfort with him. He's already moving off Derek Carr, but that's an option, swap and spit. It's not what I'm interested in, but it's an option. The next thing is taking a shot. You move off of Ryan Tannehill so that you can take a shot with Jordan Love. You take a shot by putting Malik Willis in at starting quarterback, although I think that would be a stupid shot. But you do that. I don't like that option either, but it's possible. The third is you draft a quarterback in the first round. The Titans are picking 11th. If there are 3 first-round quarterbacks, and I don't know how they have them graded, especially considering that I don't know who's doing the grading for the Titans. But if there are 3 first-round quarterbacks out there and you are picking 11, there is a legitimate chance that you can get one of the 3 first-round quarterbacks. If you draft a quarterback in the first round, I would argue that I would like to have Tannehill be the starter because I believe in sitting guys for a year. But I understand that sometimes these owners draft these guys and they want them in there right away. I like that option a lot more than the taking a shot with Jordan Love. And then the last one is just be bad. And if you're going to be bad, if you're really going to tear it down, if you're really going to just, say, okay, we're tearing it down and we're going to build it back up later and we're going to be bad this upcoming year, then you're going to get a boatload of picks and you're going to be terrible, and you might as well just have Malik play quarterback or Josh Dobbs and lose almost every game. And I'm not for that. Some of you in the text line and some of your calls, sometimes you are. Sometimes it feels like Titans Twitter gets on a big kick where they start talking about wanting to do those things, but I'm not interested in that. So basically, the way I'm telling you, if I ran the team, and I don't, but if I did, if I can't get Brady or Lamar Jackson or Aaron Rodgers or one of those guys, I'm running it back with Tannehill. Because the only other real option there is to make a lateral move. And why would you do that? You trust Tannehill. You like Tannehill. You know Tannehill fits what you do. You know the players on your team like Tannehill. Why would you upset the apple cart to see if Baker Mayfield could work out just a little bit better? doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We will go to your phones on this, 615-737-1025, plus what Tim Hasselbeck had to say about what the Titans should do, both at quarterback and rebuilding. We'll get into that as well. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063, The Game.
Want the latest on college football and Nashville sports?
He looks like 1,000 quarterbacks I've seen in a college game.
Join Outkick 360's Chad Withrow every Friday at 5 with Stillman and Company.
The coaching staff kept him and got rid of the other guys.
He'll bring opinions and charisma for a full half hour every week.
If he's so great in the locker room, then give him a coaching gig.
Chad Withrow is presented by Two Rivers Ford. Custom order your new Ford from Two Rivers Ford on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is for the men who never settle, the ones who believe only quitters end a game and a tie, the type of guys who choose the bar with the biggest TVs to overcompensate for theirs at home. This is the Lodge mentality. This is Twin Peaks.
Are you a fan of Twin Peaks? Sign up for their e-club to stay up to date on all things Twin Peaks and score free stuff. Signing up is easy. Just visit twinpeaksrestaurant.com/peaks-club to get started today.
Hey, Robbie Stanley here, and NFL Wildcard Weekend is here, and the easiest way to get into the playoffs is with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All you have to do is sign up with promo code ROB. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. I like the Bengals, Joe Burrow and company, to take down the Ravens on Wildcard Weekend, but you can take it any way you want to take it, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, with promo code ROB. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable free bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Got a gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
If you missed the latest from Chase and Michelle.
The story is what's next for the Two-Tone Blue. Hello, Michelle. How you doing?
Hello, Chaser. How are you?
I'm good. I know you were in Jacksonville. You witnessed it firsthand. What was that locker room like after the game?
Yeah, it was emotional. Emotional, I think, is probably the best word. Quiet, right? So Vrabel spoke first, and then we all went into the locker room. I think if anybody's seen the videos of Jeff Simmons, he kind of encapsulated what this season has meant to the team, and he broke down a bit, talking about his injuries specifically and what he's gone through this season. And then Kevin Byard, too, spoke really level-headed, and I think he can always be a guy that you can go to in the locker room, and he basically said, you know what, like, a lot of decisions to be made this offseason.
Chase and Michelle, weekdays from 9 to 11 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
For the love of Tennessee at dawn. For the love of the fight. For the love of having nowhere else you'd rather be. For the love of Tennessee. Travel safe. Brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
Want to weigh in on the conversation? It's a brain booster. Slide into our DMs. Or just text or call at 615-737-1025. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You're listening to Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This organization would go the path of rebuilding from the bottom up as opposed to running it back with the group that you guys have had over the last couple of years, with changes.
Well, I mean, I think that there's a number of things that you could do. There's a lot of, that's those questions that you ask every year, as you construct a roster, as you do a lot of different things. And our goals will never change. Our goal is to have a championship football team. Have fallen short, of that but we still know what wins. We still know, and we're going to win. But again, there's decisions that will be made throughout the season, throughout the off season, and starting with free agency, guys that we identify, trying to get somebody hired and looking at where we are with the salary cap and all those things that everybody's concerned about.
There you go. Mike Vrabel not committing to whether or not they're going to rebuild or not rebuild. Tim Hasselbeck was on the midday show. I let me say this. I thought Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN analyst, former quarterback, I thought Tim Hasselbeck spoke the truth today about almost everything he said about the Titans. Then he said that he thought the coach should have personnel decisions over the GM. I didn't agree with that. But everything else that Tim Hasselbeck said on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace, I thought was freaking right on point. And I thought, by the way, I think Caroline's doing a pretty great job on that show. But anywho, this is what Tim Hasselbeck said about, like, Mike Vrabel's not going to commit to not rebuilding. Let me tell you all right now, he's not rebuilding. It's not going to happen. And I thought Tim Hasselbeck put it so eloquently as to why Mike Vrabel is not going to rebuild.
I don't think you have time to tear it all down and rebuild it. As I listen to him talk, while people think that, if you tear it down, all you are doing is getting it ready for the next coach and the next GM. That's all you are doing.
So I'm not really, if I'm the coach, I'm not interested in tearing it down, getting fired so that the next guy can come in and win with my play. I'm not interested in that. I mean, if I tear it down, I want to make sure that I get to have the Jimmy Johnson moment where I win my Super Bowls with Charles Haley and Darren Woodson and Emmitt Smith and all of the guys that I acquired as Russell Maryland, as opposed to having somebody else do that. I'm not interested in that. And Vrabel's not. And that's how sports works. You tear it down, you win 4 games next year, everybody gets fired. Vrabel's not interested in that. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Bob has been waiting patiently and is going to kick us off this hour. Thank you for calling. What you got, Bobby?
Hey, Jared. We got to address the elephant in the room, and it's got to be strength and conditioning program. Our staff has got to be evaluated by Amy Adams-Strunk. Just to think we're like a turnstile of players coming through there. I mean, I can't believe this has not been something even last year must have been addressed. I want to get your feedback on that. Tell me what you think about where they are with that and what you think they need to do to address that or at least analyze it. Thank you.
Okay, so I appreciate your call. This is going to sound like I'm talking down to everybody that said exactly what that man just called in about. And I get it. The injuries the last 2 years, freaking ridiculous. I know the idea of it happening 1 year. It's like, okay, look, it was 1 year. And it was a lot of injuries, but it was 1 year. And so, okay, 2 years, that's not a coincidence. Something's wrong. I agree. But I hear everybody say, what are they going to do about strength and conditioning, Jared? What are they going to do about? And I'm like, okay. I don't know how to evaluate the medical staff because I almost don't know anything about it. And neither does Amy Adams-Strunk. That's the hard part. Neither does Vrabel. Vrabel doesn't know who's a good trainer and who's a bad trainer. He doesn't know how to analyze that because Vrabel his entire life has been taught that, hey, the trainers tell you what to do. You got to rehab that knee. The trainers are the ones that tell you that. And everybody tells me things like they got to fire the medical staff. And I've said, hey, they have to review it. But that doesn't mean that everybody that works there doesn't know what they're doing. They have a doctor by the name of Thomas Bird who is on their staff. Dr. Bird is the best hip doctor in the world. Everybody who's a high-level athlete who has had a hip surgery flies to Nashville to have Dr. Bird look at their hip. When I was in college at Louisville and we had players that had hip injuries, they went to Nashville and they saw Dr. Bird. So when you say things like, we need to fire the medical staff, you want to fire the best hip doctor in the world off the medical staff? I vote no. Now, when it comes to the strength and conditioning coach, I don't know anything about this guy. I know he was at Boston College and that Vrabel hired him, and he was here in 2018 and 2019 and 2020 when they didn't have all these injuries. Now, they have had those injuries in 21 and 22. I don't know if it's his fault or not. I know this. Most of the players on the team in the offseason, and that's when strength and conditioning really matters, most of the players on the team work out outside the building. Most of them are like, oh, no, I'm going to go to Los Angeles, and I'm going to work out with this guy, Nate Davis, and I'm going to work out with this guy, and I'm going to get in perfect shape. Remember when we yelled and screamed about how Tannehill and Henry and Simmons and all those guys weren't at the voluntary workouts? Kevin Byard went to voluntary workouts. Kevin Byard didn't get hurt. So am I going to say, well, it's got to be the strength and conditioning coach? Tier Tart won the award for hardest worker this year. He didn't get hurt. Nick Westbrook-Akine was up there for one of the offseason Player of the Year awards. He didn't get hurt. DeMarcus Walker, I think, won an offseason Player of the Year award. He didn't get hurt. So you all want to fire the strength and conditioning coach, but you don't really know anything that goes into it. I don't know anything. So, I mean, again, that's my long-winded way of saying I have no idea. I don't know. Todd Torricelli, the trainer, you stink. And I don't know that. I have no idea what his qualifications are. I have no idea what he's doing with them or not doing with them. I have no idea what Frank Pirano's doing. I have no idea. I don't know. Taylor Lewan blamed the first doctor that performed his ACL surgery 2 years ago, blamed him for it. So I'm not educated enough to tell you the answer. I know this. Fire the medical staff means firing the best hip doctor in the world, and I'm not interested in that. Kyle is up next. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. What you got, Kyle?
What's
Kyle,
up, man?
go.
So it seems that they're kind of at a crossroads to decide if they're going to just tear it down or if they need to go for it. And I was wondering if you, being kind of an insider, knowing the team a little better than most people, do they have the assets and the cap space and the ability to try to go for it the way the Rams did a couple of years ago? Because it seems like they only need a couple of pieces. They've got, a good core on defense with Simmons and Autry and Byard and those guys. They've got a quarterback in Tannehill that they trust. They've got, one of the best running backs in history there. I want Traylon Burks at wide receiver. So I think that maybe with some health and a couple of key acquisitions that they could really just, they'd have to shop all the draft picks and all that good stuff. But do you think they could go for it and actually pull it off? And do you think that's where Amy's head is at? Maybe that's why she got rid of John Robinson? I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah, the idea of the going all in and things like that about, can they go all in and trade all their picks? And can they? They could. I don't think it would be too much benefit, neither short-term nor long-term. I don't think there's a lot of players out there that the idea of you trading A.J. Brown and thinking that there will be an A.J. Brown available this year, there might be. And if there is, maybe they have to jump on it. But with the 11th pick in the draft, you can get an impact player. I believe J.J. Watt was the 11th pick in the draft. Those are the kind of players that are available when you're picking there. So you want to go all in or wonder if you can. Cap space, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this every day. The cap is fake. Did everybody hear that? The cap is fake. It's not real. So when people say, do they have enough cap space? They can get as much cap space as they want. Are they willing to spend the money? The Saints are willing to spend through their butts. People say, well, the Saints stink. Right. But the Saints stink because Drew Brees retired, not because they don't have cap space. They were $70 million in the hole last year. They ended up restructuring contracts to where they were out of it without releasing a single player, and then they went after Deshaun Watson, who makes $45 million a year. The cap's fake. It's fake. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get back into your phones at 615-737-1025. Plus, the one thing that I think is more likely than not that the Titans will do. We'll get to that coming up here on Stillman and Company. Hey, the Preds have a game tomorrow night, and it's your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty and Superbook Sports. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the game tomorrow, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate in Preds Pick to Click tomorrow morning at 8:45 with Robbie and Rexroad.
ESPN Titans NFL Nation reporter Teron Davenport brings knowledge.
3 touchdowns. He was processing, getting rid of the ball quickly.
Passion.
Make no mistake about it. He absolutely has to hit the ground running.
And expertise on the two-tone blue and the NFL. Join TD every Monday at 11, Thursdays at 3, and Friday morning at 8 for all the latest on your favorite team. Teron Davenport is presented by Craneworks on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Welcome to Smashville, home of your Nashville Predators. Join us at Bridgestone Arena Saturday, January 14th as your Preds take on the Buffalo Sabres. Monday, January 16th for Firefighter Appreciation Night against the Calgary Flames, and Tuesday, January 17th against the Columbus Blue Jackets. That's 3 games in 4 days, so grab your gold and get ready to cheer on the boys because there's no place like Smashville. Purchase your tickets today at NashvillePredators.com/tickets. That's NashvillePredators.com/tickets. Let's go, Preds!
Al Gill here from my friends at Dunkin'. Warm up and feel the love with Dunkin'. Treat yourself and a loved one to a brown butter toffee hot or iced latte, which is superb paired with the bacon avocado tomato sandwich. Be sure to try the all-new stuffed biscuit bites. It's a warm biscuit dough wrapped around a mixture of bacon, scrambled egg, and cheddar cheese. Visit us at our newly remodeled Dunkin' on Briley Parkway in Nashville or the new Dunkin' in Mount Juliet and our other locations throughout Middle Tennessee. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Terms apply.
Hey, Smashville. Join 102.5 The Game and the Nashville Predators Energy Team at Nobles in East Nashville for the official Bud Light Watch Party tomorrow night at 6. There'll be plenty of beer specials, prizes, and chances to win Preds tickets to an upcoming home game. Go Preds!
Hey, it's John Tesh. You want to know how to get better rates, better coverage, and better service on your home and auto insurance? Work with Zander Insurance. I know it's a big promise, but this team delivers. They've been around for almost 100 years and have earned the privilege of representing dozens of insurance companies so they can shop, compare, and find you the best options available. More options mean more savings, and in many cases, better coverage. But it doesn't stop there. Each year, they review your coverage to make sure your rates stay competitive. Nobody else does that. And when it comes to service, just check out their ratings. Zander is one of the top agencies in the industry, and they earned that spot with their commitment to making sure their clients are taken care of like family. That's what sets them apart. Go to Zander.com for quick online quotes or call 800-356-1780 for that personal touch that you've been missing.
Todd Downing is out. Mike Vrabel has begun making changes with the coaching staff, including the release of offensive coordinator Todd Downing.
You can't lose 7 in a row and everybody keep their jobs.
What other changes could be made? Talking Titans? Keep it locked on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey Nashville, this is Mookie Betts. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Well, you know, we have to address it. We have to at least look at it, and we are, and we have, and we do it every single day. You know, that I meet with Todd, that we meet with Frank, that we're trying to figure out what these injuries are, Gentry, and I know that everybody, you know, has got the answers. I don't know if I have the answers on, you know, that 90% of the injuries occurred in the game, right? Of an ACL or an MCL or a high ankle sprain. I mean, those are hard, you know. We look at soft tissue injuries. We look at those soft tissue injuries of, you know, repeat offenders. You know, I mean, it doesn't take too hard to look and see that, you know, Christian Fulton and David Long are, you know, I mean, they're repeat offenders of soft tissue injuries. They have to figure out a way to train and act like, you know, the game is played at a high speed. Kevin Byard hadn't pulled a hamstring since we've been here. You know what I mean? And there's a durability factor to playing professional football that we should not overlook.
That was Vrabel yesterday, and I got to say, I completely agree with it. Texter into the text line is talking about, how do you explain that A.J. Brown was hurt all his time with the Titans, and then he goes to Philadelphia, and A.J. doesn't get hurt? How do you explain that? I don't know. And clearly Mike Vrabel doesn't know. He hasn't spent his whole life trying to figure out how to evaluate medical staffs. So my guess is when you all yell and scream about they have to evaluate the medical staff, I think the Titans are probably going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, trying to figure out what has gone wrong the last 2 years with their medical staff, with hamstrings and groins and ACLs and everything else. And even then, that person can probably give them a much more educated opinion than what I have or what you have or what Vrabel has. But that doesn't mean that that's going to be the crux of the issue. It's almost like I empathize with Vrabel because you all want to know who is responsible for all these injuries. And it's not as simple as just pointing the finger and saying him. It's not as easy as it is getting mad at Todd Downing when he takes Derrick Henry off the field on 3rd down and 2. That's easy. You know whose fault that is. By the way, one thing that hasn't been talked about enough, that stupid lateral that they tried to run last week against the Jags. Holy crap. What was that? Ridiculous. Let's go to Jesse, who's up next. 615-737-1025. Jesse, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, so theoretically, John Robinson got fired for not spending money on A.J. Brown. What do you think are the chances that this new GM wants to spend money? We kind of have a philosophy change. And what do you think the odds are of some sort of a package deal for Derek Carr and Devontae Adams?
Zero. I do not think that the Raiders are giving up Devontae Adams. In fact, I think that it's just me. Thank you for your call. I think the Raiders are trying to recruit Tom Brady. When I've been on this since when the Raiders lost to the Colts the week that Jeff Saturday got hired, and everybody said, Josh McDaniels stinks, he has to go. And there was a story that was the Raiders are too cash poor to be able to fire Josh McDaniels. And I'm like, they're not too cash poor to be able to fire a coach. Teams decide how much money they want to spend in the NFL. It's like baseball. The salary cap is fake. For years and years and years, they've hoodwinked you all to think that the salary cap's real, but it's really not. So what happens is you have some teams like the Chicago Bears that spend $150 million on their teams, and you have some teams like the Rams that spend $270 million on their team. Think there's a difference? Of course there is. And so when the Raiders put out that they couldn't afford to fire Josh McDaniels, I knew that was bullcrap. So I'm like, okay, why are they really not going to fire Josh McDaniels? And I think the reason that they've decided they're not going to fire Josh McDaniels is because they want Josh McDaniels to recruit Tom Brady. And last week, and I've been saying that again for 2 months, and last week the Las Vegas Review-Journal reported that Josh McDaniels and the Raiders are going after Brady. Well, if you're going after Brady, and Brady's already wanted to go there before, and you've got Brady's coach, you don't trade Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is part of the reason why Tom Brady wants to go to you. You don't trade Devontae Adams. Now, the idea about the money, I think this is fascinating. The Titans, generally speaking, spend within the top half of the NFL. I believe last year the Titans were in the top 10. And I think they spent as much money as the Rams did in 2021. Now, in 2022, I think the Titans were somewhere in the top 12, 13. And for next year, they're committed to about 14th or 15th in terms of total cash spending. Right now, Cleveland is number one, and that is because they'll have to pay Deshaun Watson $46 million. And cash is real. The owner, they would prefer to make more money than they would be to spend money. Bill Belichick yesterday went on a rant about how over the last 3 years, the Patriots are 27th in cash spent, What that was a finger being pointed at Robert Kraft saying, hey, don't get so mad at me. He's only spending 27th. I mean, what am I supposed to do with it? So that is something to keep an eye on, because the caller just said, John Robinson got fired for not spending money with A.J. Brown. And I don't know if it's about the not spending money. I asked Berg Nihill one time, the team president and CEO, when we were talking about the stadium. And I asked him, I said, when you have 91 players play on your team, we just see a guy go to IR and we're like, okay, he goes to IR, and then they just sign somebody off the practice squad. And I'm like, that's got to be a lot of money, right? And he looked at me and he was like, oh, it all counts. I mean, those things, as far as, P&Ls are concerned, profit and loss margins, those things do matter. One thing I wonder about when it comes to the big contracts, like an A.J. Brown contract, I don't think the owner gets so mad about the fact that, they didn't spend the money on A.J. Brown. I think she looks at it as, hold on. So it would have cost me a $28 million check today in order to retain A.J. Brown. But instead, I have to write a $13 million check to Robert Woods and a $3.5 million check to Jeff Swaim and a $2 million check to Randy Bullock. And so, I'm spending money, but you're spending it on Jeff Swaim, and he sucks. I think that's the bigger issue as far as John Robinson was concerned. Not the Titans don't have any money. I don't think it was that got him fired. I think it was more so that she's looking at, where they rank in the league in terms of cash spent. And she's like, I'm not doing what Robert Kraft is doing to New England, where you're 27th. Hell, the Titans spent more money on their team. You're not going to believe this. The Titans spent more money, more cash this season on their football team than Jerry Jones spent on the Cowboys. Again, you're not going to believe me. And this has nothing to do with the salary cap. It's all about the actual money. But they spent more than the Cowboys did. Because the Dallas Cowboys, in terms of cash, are shockingly somewhere around the bottom of the league. So she's looking at that thinking, wait a minute, whoa. I'm giving you enough money, and you're getting me Jeff Swaim and Aaron Brewer? How'd that happen? Texter says, coaches' salaries have nothing to do with the cap. Raiders would have to pay 2 full staffs if they fire McDaniels. The owner is being investigated by the IRS right now. Coaches' pay comes out of the owner's pocket. Cap money comes from TV deals. What have we learned about the cap, class? Ian, what have we learned about the cap?
The cap is not real.
What's real?
Money.
Okay. Who ends up spending the money?
Miss Amy.
And who ends up spending the money on coaches?
Usually Miss Amy.
There you go. The owner is paying. It's all the same. It's money. The cap is not real. And I hate this because this is going to be an off-season long discussion where it's like, oh, would the Titans be interested? So-and-so's unhappy and they want a new deal. Would the Titans be interested in so-and-so? Well, they've only got $7 million in cap space. It's fake. It's not real. The Atlanta Falcons argued that the reason that they sucked this year was because they had to trade Matt Ryan to reset their salary cap. But that's not why they traded Matt Ryan. Everybody knows why they traded Matt Ryan. They traded Matt Ryan because he got mad at them that they went after Deshaun Watson. So it wasn't the idea of, we can't afford to pay a quarterback because of the cap. It was Matt Ryan didn't want to be here. Deshaun wasn't going to come here. So we had to do right by Matt. So we traded him to Indianapolis, and there was really nobody left to go get to play quarterback. So we paid Marcus Mariota a little bit of money to see what he could do. That's what it was. Because the cap is fake. Don't let anybody tell you that the cap is real. The money is real. That's it. The cap is fake. 615-737-1025. We'll get back into your phones. David Poyle today We've been all Titans the whole week. We're going to take a Preds breather right here, or a Titans breather on the Preds. David Poyle on the morning show today said some wild stuff. We'll get into that next. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
Every Wednesday at 8:45. Come on. Join Robbie and Rexroad for The Choice is Yours.
2 sports questions, 2 non-sports questions.
They'll answer a couple of questions about life and sports. The Choice is Yours is built by Jarrett Companies. You have a choice. So when you have a need for site and utility work, fire protection, concrete and asphalt services, the choice is simple. It's Jarrett Companies. For more, visit JarrettCompaniesInc.com. The Choice is Yours. Wednesdays at 8:45 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Middle Tennessee, you can count on an award-winning service team for all your home maintenance and improvement needs. Lee Company, we're A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau and trusted by thousands of homeowners in our community. Our team is ready to assist with all your home maintenance projects, heating and air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, appliance service, and more. Experience the convenience of calling one phone number for all your home maintenance needs. Call Lee Company today at 615-567-1000 or visit leecompany.com.
If you missed the latest from Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace.
But I think going forward, this will be interesting how they try to pick the pieces back up.
And that's the thing. And really, to your point about the fumble, was it an incomplete pass? Was it a fumble? The frustrating thing is, it never should have come down to that. I know that so many Titans fans are so frustrated about that call, thought it was a bad call, and you can have your own thoughts on that call however you'd like. But it's the fact that the Titans season had to come down to that call, or had to come down to this game. That's the root of the problem. And Willie, to your point, Mike Vrabel's never had a season like this as a head coach. This is his first losing season as a head coach in the National Football League. So how do you move forward? How do you get back to the days of hosting a playoff game, winning seasons, top seed in the AFC, competing for an AFC championship? That's what we all want to know, is what's the next step?
Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace. Weekdays from 11 to 2 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Signs First, Nashville's leading locally owned and operated sign and physical media company, has been supporting local community organizations for over 30 years. Signs First offers a 10% discount to all churches, nonprofits, and charities. Go to sfnash.com.
You look at yourself in the mirror every day and you can't deny it anymore. Your hair is not as thick as it used to be, and it's making you feel self-conscious. Hair Club is here to save the day. For 45 years, Hair Club has helped more than 500,000 clients love their hair and feel confident again. No matter what stage of hair loss, they can help. Hair Club can customize a solution just for you. For a limited time, get 10% off when you book a free consultation today at hairclub.com/chase.
Start your day with a cup of Joe. Ugh, he's gonna think that's stupid. Wait, what? Robbie Stanley and Joe Rexroad are Robbie and Rexroad. There, that sounds better.
Thank you so much.
Weekdays from 6 to 9 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Strong opinions and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Preds win 3-0 in Ottawa. How do you follow up 64 saves from UC Saros? How about the Preds' first shutout of the season? 3-0 W. Preds have won 4 in a row and are 3-0 to start the 5-game trip.
All right, so the Predators are starting to win some games. And for about the first 2.5 months of the season, they lost almost every night, and they would say, well, we still think we have a team that can play. And everybody around here is like, I know. We've heard that enough. I know. And now they're winning some games. And like I said yesterday, they are the ones that have said, hey, we're going to turn it around. You watch. We believe in ourselves. And I have been the one who has been very skeptical, but they are winning. And you have to give them credit for when they win. Regardless of how miraculous it could be, like last week's win at Carolina, the truth is they beat Carolina, they beat Washington, and Ottawa stinks, but they beat them last night, and that's great. Then there's David Poyle. I literally could not believe what I heard. So just for context, let's go back to the beginning of the season. The Predators won the 2 games against that awful San Jose team in the Global Series, and then they came back and they started getting their butts beat after they had spent the whole offseason promising us, we think we can compete for the cup. And David Poyle was asked by Chase on the midday show about who to blame. And do you blame the coach? And this is what David Poyle said then in October.
When you're going to talk about why we are where we are, you should include me and you should include the players. You shouldn't be just talking about the coaches. I mean, I think that's totally unfair. I mean, if somebody scored X number of goals last year and they have one goal right now, they need to play better. They need to have more of a contribution to our team. I don't think a lot of things that when you talk about wins and losses necessarily fall on the coaching group. I mean, again, we love to say that we win and lose as a team, and the team includes everybody: scouts, coaches, managers, players, managers. So we are where we are, and again, 7 games in the season, we're not happy. Let's get this changed up and let's start getting some wins, and hopefully that'll start as soon as Thursday.
Okay, so you heard right there, as much as we'd like to say the coaching doesn't have anything to do with winning and losing, and Caroline and I went bananas when we heard that. So then, less than a month ago, this was December 20th, Chase asked David Poyle about the lack of scoring and the coaches, and here's what David Poyle said on December 20th.
As I watched the game, I think the game plan, I think the systems are really good. I think the execution is not good. In every game, we seem to be in prime position to take advantage of maybe a 2-on rush or a 3-on-2 or make a pass that could be for a tap-in type of a goal. Those type of situations, and this is I'm never one to lay this on any one particular player or individual. It's a team event, and we're just not executing very well. I like the process. I like what the systems that we're playing, but we're not taking advantage or whatever it is. We're just missing something from the finishing touch. I mean,
okay, so he said right there, I like the coaches are doing a good job, and I like the systems, and I like what they're doing. It's just the players are not executing. They're not finishing. They're not putting the puck in the net. They're just not. So the first was you can't blame the coach for winning and losing. That was October. December was I like the system. I think the coaches are doing a good job. The players are just not putting it in the net. So it's blame the players in October. It's blame the players in December. So, Ian, who do you think should get the credit when things are going well in January?
Players.
That's what I would think. This was David Poyle this morning on Robbie and Rex Road.
What are you noticing as to why the offense has been so much better the last 2 or 3 weeks?
Well, the coaches have been really putting an emphasis on the offense in terms of their preparation, in terms of their systems, and I think we came to the realization that we're not going to win every game 2-1 or even 3-2. And as I like to say, it's fun to score goals, and we've had some good goal scorers that are down a little bit this year, and I like the way we're playing now. So I think there's been some adjustments, and there's been some. Again, as you said, it's some system changes, and certainly been some changes on the power play, and all these things are contributing in at least some small part to us winning more games on a consistent basis.
That didn't sound like he was giving credit to the players. That sounds like he was giving credit to the coach. And it's like he's sitting there saying, we tweaked our systems. Less than a month ago, 15 days ago, David Poyle was telling us, I like our systems. I believe in our systems. The guys just aren't putting it in the net. Now they're putting it in the net, and he's like, it's the coaches. Oh, the coaches are doing a great job. If I did not know better, I would think that David Poyle's kid was the coach. It's like Little League, where the coach's son always gets to pitch. Like, what are we doing here? David goes after the players early in the season, says they're not doing a good enough job. You can blame me, but don't blame the coach. Then last month, he goes right at the players, saying it's not the system, it's not the coach, it's the players are not executing and they need to score. Now they're scoring. It's great job, coaches. Did anybody else catch that? This is why we cannot believe this man. It's like Adam Vingan wrote after last year, I think it was a very eloquent way of saying, I think it was, quote, David Poyle has become an unreliable narrator, is what Adam Vingan wrote. You know what that means. Why is he incapable of criticizing his coach, but he's not incapable of criticizing his players, and then he is incapable of giving the players their credit when they're the ones who are scoring? When I heard that David Poyle cut this morning, when I heard him say it in live time on Robbie and Rex Road, first off, I blew up Joe's phone for letting David off the hook when he said something like that. You got to say, David, wait a minute. You said a month ago, not even a month ago, you said on December 20th that the system was fine and that the coaches were not why they're not scoring, and now they're scoring, and you say it's because the coaches changed the system? I got in Joe's butt about that one. But the thing is about the inconsistency, that when I heard him say that, all I could think about was I could hear, and if you are a longtime Jared and the GM listener, you know what I'm about to say. I could hear that Floyd Reese chuckle in my head when he said it. I could hear the that we'd get out of Floyd every now and then that usually was in my direction. Like, that's what I heard when he said that. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm sitting here, I'm like literally like half asleep, and David Poyle tells Robbie and Joe that it's the coach. And I'm like, what does he have invested in the coach? Why? Why did he bring the coach back? Why has he stood on the table for the coach? Why? Why is it in a public interview and David Poyle cares more? I am convinced that David Poyle cares more what people think than he actually cares about winning and losing hockey games. Because I don't think he really thinks that they can compete for a cup with this team. I really don't. Because nobody else does. And so you're telling me that somebody who knows something about hockey thinks that this team can compete for a cup when nobody else who knows a lot less about hockey and the people who do know hockey also don't think they can compete? So I don't know what it is. But it's like a Ponzi scheme, it feels like. It's like he keeps selling me on the coach. But then when they're not scoring, it's not the coach's fault. When they're not winning, it's not the coach's fault. Then when they start scoring and they start winning, you got to give credit to the coach. Is his son the coach? Is this Little League? I don't know. But I laughed so hard. And I could just hear Floyd saying, I want some consistency. That's all I want. If we're going to blame the players for why they're not scoring because they're not executing, and we are going to say that the systems are great and I believe in them and I trust in them, and then less than a month later, we're going to say the coach tweaked the system. And one of the really underrated funny lines in that was when he said, I think it's fun to score goals. Yeah, I do too. Maybe you should go get some more players that can do that. He also was asked on Robbie and Rexford about Tolvanen. I have not kept up with Ellie Tolvanen because I do not care about Seattle Kraken hockey. But I guess Ellie Tolvanen has gone to Seattle and is lighting it up a little bit on the power play.
And he had a goal and an assist last night.
I think he's got 3 goals in 5 games. And I think they're all on the power play or whatever. And he basically said, if Ellie Tolvanen goes there, then I guess I might have made a mistake if that's what ends up happening. I'm like, we know. Like, trust me. We know. And that's the frustration with it around here, is that it's common sense. And it just sometimes, as Adam Vingan so eloquently put it, it feels like David Poyle is an unreliable narrator. It feels like it's very hard for me to listen to him and trust that he actually believes what he's saying. And if he does actually believe what he's saying, it makes it very difficult for me to deal with the fact that that's what my team's general manager thinks. I just don't get it. I really don't. But they're winning some games, so that's good. And I almost feel like Steve Spurrier, with some of his press conferences at the end at South Carolina, where it's just like, well, we're not a very good team, and so I guess it is what it is. And so I look at it like this, like, what David Poyle said this morning didn't make any sense, and it certainly didn't track with what he said in the past, but they're winning some games, so maybe they'll compete. We'll see. We'll see if they'll get this thing turned around and somehow find their way into the playoffs and somehow find their way past the first round and somehow give us something to believe in. We'll see. I'm not totally optimistic, but we'll see. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you want to add that to the list, you can. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Mike Vrabel did something. You talk about David Poyle and what he said yesterday making me mad. Mike Vrabel did something yesterday that I thought was a sign of fear. I just don't know of what. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Stuck at work without a radio?
Wait a minute. Disastrous.
I hate that.
It's got to be there.
That's okay. Download the Game Nashville app or go to thegamenashville.com and listen live. We are Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Attention all fire and safety line experts. Middle Tennessee's fastest growing fire protection company is looking for experienced service technicians, designers, and sprinkler system experts like you. Tired of working for a large corporate employer? Work for a company where you're more than just a number. Jarrett Fire Protection is owned and operated by Nashville natives and wants to invite you to grow with their amazing team.
Hi, I'm Jason Jarrett, owner of Jarrett Companies. I'm looking to hire experienced sprinkler experts and will offer a sign-on bonus of up to $5,000 for certified professionals. In addition to our great benefits that include a 401k match, PTO, and top pay with annual bonuses, we will also provide you with the top-of-the-line tools, trucks, and equipment that you need to grow your career. Our customer base is large and business is booming with many opportunities for advancement. Give us a call or go online to jarrettfire.com and apply today to become a member of our family and protect our community. That's JARRETT fire.com. Jarrett Companies, where we are above and beyond industry standards.
For the love of the climb, for the love of the fall, for the love of knowing your kids' laughter is the sweetest music there is, for the love of Tennessee. Travel safe. Brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
Now, your Game Center update.
This Game Center update is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. The Tennessee Titans officially fired offensive coordinator Todd Downing on Monday afternoon. That adds one more thing on the long list of things to do for the Titans this offseason. Head coach Mike Vrabel on addressing all the uncertainty with the team.
I mean, as a player, there was always uncertainty, so as a coach, there's uncertainty in this business. It's whether there's a GM, there's an interim GM, whether there's no GM, there's uncertainty. That wouldn't change if we hired a GM tomorrow.
The Nashville Predators continued their hot streak last night as they have now won 4 games in a row following a 3-0 shutout of the Ottawa Senators. They will continue the road trip on Wednesday night in Toronto to take on the Maple Leafs. We will have pregame coverage at 5:30 and puck drop at 6:30 right here on the Preds Radio Network. The Georgia Bulldogs had no problem with TCU last night on their way to a second straight national title. And coming up at 7:30 on 93.3 Classic Hits, Vanderbilt travels to Knoxville to take on the Vols in some SEC Hoops action. This update is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. I'm Ian Safar for 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Broadcasting on Alexa.
I appreciate that.
And other smart speakers. 1025 and 106.3.
1, 2, 3. I think it was a good game. Had a couple of big plays.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Where you have a voice.
He had a competent coaching staff. You just play terrible and you keep playing.
And we have strong opinions.
What a whiny freaking crybaby response.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live, thanks to Superbook Sports, live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. And so yesterday we had the traditional Black Monday where people got fired and it wasn't good enough. In Nashville, Tennessee, we have not had that in a long time because the Titans win a lot. And so this is really the first Black Monday that we have had since the end of the 2015 season at the beginning of 2016 when Rushton Webster got fired. That's it. First time. That's a long time. Now, what I thought was fascinating was something I heard yesterday. Mike Vrabel gets asked by me at about 11:40 yesterday, or maybe 11:30, gets asked, are you going to bring Todd Downing back? And Mike Vrabel said that they're going to work through some things and figure that out. And at 4 o'clock, the Titans announced that Todd Downing had been fired. So my guess is they didn't have to work through anything at that point. Vrabel knew he was going to fire Todd Downing. Why did he wait until after his press conference before there was even a report that they were going to fire Todd Downing? Probably because Vrabel didn't want to have to talk about firing Todd Downing. I asked Mike Vrabel about his commitment to Ryan Tannehill. He was unwilling to do that. I asked Mike Vrabel if this team was going to rebuild. He was unwilling to commit to not rebuilding. And then yesterday I found out that Mike Vrabel's radio show, which is an hour-long program with which he only does 30 minutes of, I don't know, that it's an hour-long program he only does 30 minutes of, he taped it. So what is supposed to be a call-in show where people are supposed to call the coach and you give them the questions, this is what they sign up for. And sometimes you get the best questions that get asked of these coaches, and it can be wild. And now I actually read an article in The Athletic that a lot of college programs are going away from the call-ins because the coach doesn't like losing and then have to, the coach at Florida State doesn't like to lose a game, and then all of a sudden, Jim Bob from Pensacola calls in and just reams him out. Even though I think that should be part of the contract. That should be part of the deal. And these coaches make a lot of money off this TV and radio stuff, just so you all know that. So Vrabel does 30 minutes of his weekly coaches show, and apparently he taped it. So he didn't address the firings of Todd Downing and Keith Carter. So they're running something at 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night or whatever time it comes on, and Mike Vrabel's not actually addressing the news that's happened because when he taped it, the news hadn't happened. Now, I don't know if that's what I was told by multiple people, that Vrabel taped his coach's show. So why would Vrabel tape his coach's show? Why would Vrabel get up there and knowingly lie about Todd Downing? Why would Vrabel not be able to commit to anything tangible about next season? The answer is because he is scared. Now, the real question is, what is he scared of? You can be big and tough, and you can play in the NFL, and you can beat everybody up and everything else. That does not eliminate fear as a feeling that you may or may not have. I think deep down inside, the reason why Mike Vrabel was afraid to make any commitments about the future of the organization, whether it be Ryan Tannehill as the quarterback, Derrick Henry as the running back, rebuilding, reloading, you name it, is because he doesn't want to handcuff the next general manager who has been promised that this will be a collaborative effort. Amy Adams Strunk does not like talking to the media, even if it is the friendly media. So when she sits down with Jim Wyatt and she says, I want this to be a collaborative process with the GM and the coach, and I want both of them to report to me, and she uses the word collaborative or some form of it 4 or 5 times, she's telling you what really matters to her. And she did that so that Vrabel didn't have to go up there and get asked about the GM for 30 minutes. But if that's going to be what this really is, a collaborative effort where one man is not higher than the other on the organizational chart, then Mike Vrabel is probably fearful of what would happen if he were to get up there and tell you, I'm committed to Ryan Tannehill. I'm committed to Derrick Henry. I'm committed to reloading, not rebuilding. I don't want to tear this down. I don't want it. If he did that, then there's probably a lot of people that are like, wait a minute. I thought I was going to be allowed to put my plan in as to what the Tennessee Titans need to do. But the coach is up there and he says he's got all the answers. That seems pretty simple to me. And I don't know if Vrabel will actually have more power. The funny thing about there's two co-managers. The funny thing about that is that never really works. You know, you have one guy who's in charge of day-to-day. You have another guy who's in charge of big picture. That never really actually works. What ultimately ends up happening is somebody is above the other guy. Somebody's got a bigger office. Somebody makes more money. The owner agrees with somebody more than not, and it ultimately will work itself out. But right now, they want a united front of complete and total collaboration, and so that's why Vrabel's not going to commit to any of the football stuff. The second part, the lying about Todd Downing and the coaching staff, and then taping his radio show. What is he afraid of there? And that I don't know the answer to. I mean, taping his radio show? How lazy can you be? It's not like you have to do 4 hours of talking to the fans. Just like I don't have to watch 55 billion hours of film every week. They're not asking you to do something overly difficult. They're asking you to put a headset on for 30 minutes and take 9 phone calls and have Mike Keith read out 4 texts, and then off you go. And Mike Vrabel's too busy to stand around the office and wait to do that? Probably not. Mike Vrabel probably taped that radio show as a convenient way to not have to address the real news of the day, which is why he fired Todd Downing. Mike Vrabel made a joke as he walked off the podium yesterday, and I chuckled at it, but he said, I would say see you guys soon or hope to see you soon, but, and he walked off. And it was funny, it's classic Vrabel, but he knows he's not talking for a while. He's not talking until probably the combine. Maybe he has a pre-combine press conference. We've seen some teams do this. So Vrabel's not talking until the end of February, the beginning of March. It is early January. The only time that he would have to talk after the Todd Downing thing, the only time he'd have to talk is that coach's radio show last night, and he taped it. Unbelievable. So what's going to happen is they're going to hire a general manager. Vrabel will not talk at that press conference. He'll be there, but he will not talk at it. It's his day, not my day. So the new general manager will talk. I assume Amy will probably talk. She'll have to introduce him, as much as I'm sure she doesn't want to do that. She'll have to introduce him. Then he'll talk. Then Vrabel will step out, stage right. We won't hear from Vrabel again. Then they'll go to the combine. Then Vrabel will talk. When he hires a new offensive coordinator or a new line coach or whatever, there will be a paragraph. It'll be emailed out to all of us in the media. It'll be put on the team's website. It'll say, I'm really excited to hire Bobby Ray. He's a great coordinator. He's spent a lot of time working with such and such, and he really develops quarterbacks well and has a great relationship with the players and is a great teacher, and I'm really excited to getting to work with him. That's all it's going to be. And he's never going to address why he fired Todd Downing, why he fired Keith Carter. Why? Why does Mike Vrabel not want to talk about that? People are going to get mad at me for asking this question because they're assuming that I am leading somebody to some kind of conclusion. I'm not. When I found out that he taped his radio show yesterday, again, he does 30 minutes on his radio show. It is an hour-long radio show. I almost chuckle at the idea that the Mike Vrabel show has half of not Mike Vrabel. But he taped it? Like, I get when Vrabel doesn't do it when they play on Thursday night. So it's like, all right, the GM will take some phone calls or Dave McGinnis will take some phone calls. Fine. But to tape it when there's no game for 9 months? There's a reason he did that. there's a reason he didn't want to face that audience, which would not be me or Paul Kaharski or, anybody that might say something that he might not like. But it's you all. It's your calls. It's your tweets. He's like, nope, let's tape it. That way we don't have to talk to any fans today, and we don't have to address the news that I'm about to drop in 3 or 4 hours. Let's tape it. I cannot believe he did that. So again, he's not committing. I think it's because he's scared of something. He wouldn't commit to firing Todd Downing. He wouldn't talk about it yesterday. He's never going to talk about it. What is Mike Vrabel worried about? Why is Mike Vrabel so unwilling to really say anything that closely resembles the truth? 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. 615-737-1025. And we do know the names of some of the candidates the Titans are going to interview, which maybe gives me a little bit of hope. 615-737-1025. We'll get to that, and we'll get to your phones. Stillman and Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
185! Every team needs a quarterback. 185! That's why we have
Hasselbeck, bootleg, rollout, toss, touchdown!
Tim. ESPN NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck gives his expertise on all things NFL.
How that team is built, I think there's a lot to like about them.
Every Tuesday at noon, Tim with Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace. Presented by Red Spirit and Wine in Bellevue on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
The Electronic Express New Year's blowout sale is going on now. Come into any of our convenient locations for the guaranteed lowest prices on all of your favorite brands like Samsung, LG, Apple, KitchenAid, Sony, and more. Electronic Express has huge savings in every department. 4K TVs, computers, appliances, housewares, gaming, and more. Save up to 40% with up to 36 months free financing. Shop great deals in-store or online at electronicexpress.com. Electronic Express, we make it happen.
Want to kick off the new year without any credit card debt? If that sounds good to you, you can do it with Loan Pronto's Express Equity Line of Credit. Wipe out all those credit card bills right now. Hey, Willie Donick here. Rates are down, and it's a great move to get on more solid financial footing for the new year. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a portion of the equity you have and enjoy a rate that's a whole lot less than what the banks charge on credit cards. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days. You can access up to 95% of your home's equity. Use that money to pay off those high-interest credit card loans of any type. Credit cards, personal loans, car loans, whatever. Consolidate everything into one easy payment. Even if you did a whole total refi last year, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program and keep your main loan intact. Call Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Subscription required.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 90% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/radio. At Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the biggest brands at 90% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but 90% cheaper. It's the same medication you get from your doctor, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/radio. That's 4hims.com/radio for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/RADIO.
It's simple. If you want to drive in Tennessee, the law requires financial responsibility. You cannot afford to drive uninsured. The state of Tennessee now has a new system that can actually verify your vehicle's coverage. Without insurance, you could pay fines and even lose the right to drive your car. Be responsible. Drive insured, Tennessee.
Brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Revenue in cooperation with the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Want to see our smiling faces? You can watch us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live.
We are good to go.
Presented by Superbook Sports, voted #1 sportsbook in Vegas. You're listening to Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Do you ask for your input on anyone that you may already know that you would have a preference for?
Yeah, I mean, we've had conversations about it, so I would just say that those were good conversations, open conversations. So yeah, it's not like Amy's kept me in the dark about the process and how that's going.
I mean, come on. You think Amy wouldn't say anything? Come on now. So we've got a name to add to the list of candidates the Titans are going to interview for the GM position. As of right now, they're going to interview Monty Ossenfort and Ryan Cowden, who are currently on their staff. Monty Ossenfort was with the Patriots for a long time. A lot of people thought he would be a general manager of the Texans, but the Patriots blocked, I think, any chance of them hiring Ossenfort. When his contract ran out, he ended up coming here. So Monty Ossenfort and Ryan Cowden will interview. Malik Boyd with the Buffalo Bills. And I don't know the exact titles of all these guys. They all have, Vice President of Player Personnel or Senior Director of Scouting, or they're all basically assistants to the general manager there. They're, number 2, number 3, whatever. They're in the front office. Malik Boyd of the Buffalo Bills. Ian Cunningham of the Chicago Bears. They'll interview him Saturday. Rand Carthon of the 49ers, the old running back. Adam Peters of the 49ers. Glenn Cook of the Browns. And now a new name per Ian Rappaport, NFL Network, Quentin Harris of the Arizona Cardinals. What I think has happened, and a lot of these guys are minority candidates. So Carthon is a minority candidate. Boyd is a minority candidate. Cunningham is a minority candidate. Harris is a minority candidate. What happened is the NFL launched a program where teams would send minority candidates for front office positions to meet with the owners at one of the owners' meetings. They've also done this in the offseason for coaches. So assistant coaches would go and would just get to meet these owners just so they knew. It was basically the NFL's way of saying, hey, we're going to try to get minority candidates in front of owners. And it's certainly flawed, but it at least, allows people to know who they are, allows owners to know, hey, this is who Quentin Harris is with the Arizona Cardinals. I met him. I actually think he's pretty sharp. My guess is that because Amy Adams Strunk either had fired John Robinson when this went down or was going to fire John Robinson when the owners were able to meet with potential general manager clients, potential front office hires at this, there's probably a handful of people that she met or that they met and that they really liked. And so that's why I think we're going to see a lot of minority candidates that interview for this job. Now, I will say this. If the Titans interview 9 minority candidates and they end up hiring Ryan Cowden, the white guy who was here, I don't know how people are going to react to that. I don't think it'll be as bad as the Houston Texans firing African-American coaches after 1 year where they put in unwinnable situations. Now, maybe I only feel this way because they both beat the Titans. I thought David Culley and Lovie Smith did a good job because those Texan teams sucked. And those Texan teams had no way out. David Culley takes the job. He never had a first-round pick. And his starting quarterback quit on the team. He wasn't going to play. And you fire a man for that. And so I don't think if the Titans end up hiring Ryan Cowden, it'll be as bad as Stephen A. Smith and Michael Irvin saying on television. Yesterday, Stephen A. Smith said, black coaches do not apply for the Houston Texans. That's how bad that situation is. But I do think, if the Titans interview 10 general manager candidates and 7 are minority candidates and they end up hiring the guy that they already had here, I do wonder if there's going to be a lot of eyebrows raised. That being said, I do think that when we see all of the minority candidates from all these different organizations that the Titans are bringing in, it does make me think that the NFL's minority front office system might be working. And I think that's great. And I also think it's a great thing. I think it's strategic. The 49ers, let's say the Titans hire Rand Carthon from the 49ers. The 49ers are going to get a draft choice because of that. If DeMeco Ryans, their defensive coordinator, gets a head coaching job, they'll get another draft choice because of that. They got a draft choice because of Robert Saleh. They got a draft choice because of, I believe, Terry Fontenot, the general manager in Atlanta, I want to say came from there. Could be wrong, but I think so. They got a draft choice for that. They got a draft choice for Mike McDaniel. So keep that in mind, too, as the incentive program that the NFL has released. Texter into the text line. Boy, people sometimes get mad at me. They said, quote, Mike Vrabel is scared? That's laughable. You're a joke, Jared. He's not answering these questions because he doesn't have to. That's right. You just tape your radio show. You don't have to. You're just mad because you're not getting the answer that you want to hear. I'm not mad. I asked yesterday, is Todd Downing coming back? Mike Vrabel did not have an answer. He said, we'll have to evaluate it. 5 hours later, he fired the guy. I told you an hour before he fired him on this program, I said he's not bringing him back. He can't bring him back. He's not going to. That's too much currency for Mike Vrabel to take up that he would burn on himself if he brought Todd Downing back. He's not going to do it. So Vrabel didn't give me the answer that I wanted to hear, but I wasn't mad at him for it. But he lied. There's no way around that. He did not tell the truth yesterday. When asked, are you bringing Todd back? Oh, well, that's part of the evaluation process. 5 hours later, fired. I mean, come on now. Texter says, don't drill me for this, Jared, which, by the way, let me say this. That's not the way to start off a text. When you say something like, hey, somebody calls in, let's go to Bob, who's up next. Hey, Jared, don't cut me off because I got a really important point I want to make. I think, oh, boy, where's this going? Every time. He says, don't drill me for this, Jared. I don't know if this is even possible, but how much luck would the Titans have bringing Sean Payton onto the staff? I know he's a head coach, but is that even possible? So I'm not going to drill the guy. No, it is not possible. In fact, I don't even think Sean Payton wants to go to the Broncos. I know he's interviewing with them. I think what Sean Payton's going to do is I think he wants the Dolphins to fire Mike McDaniel. Ian and I were talking about this during a break. They got that old kook down there, Stephen Ross. And last year he tried to get Sean Payton and Brady, and he would have had them if Brian Flores hadn't sued the NFL.
He does some wild stuff, doesn't he?
Oh, he is an old kook. And so, that old man down there, there were rumors that were coming out that if Miami had lost last week with a third-string quarterback against the Jets and missed the playoffs, that Mike McDaniel would have gotten fired. Now, I don't keep up with the Dolphins on a daily basis, but, I think Mike McDaniel's doing a pretty good job. And so there were rumors that he was going to get fired. And so I think Sean Payton put out before the start of the year that the places that he would want to coach would be the Chargers, the Cowboys, or the Dolphins. Well, all three of those teams are in the playoffs. And other than apparently the Titans, nobody fires their coach when they make it to the playoffs. So I think he's looking for a warm weather something and a good quarterback or a spot where he can get a good quarterback. Well, he can't get a good quarterback with the Broncos because Russell Wilson is entrenched there with all that money. So I think what he's trying to do is he's going to interview with all these teams, and he's going to hope that he can convince the Dolphins to fire Mike McDaniel and hire him. But Sean Payton's not doing anything except to be a head coach. And I think one of the reasons he's flirting with Denver is they're the richest team in the league. And when you're the richest team in the league, you could pay a coach $18 million a year and not think twice about it if you think that's the guy who's going to save Russell Wilson. So, no. Sean Payton is not going to be the offensive coordinator of the Titans. That's not going to happen. Sean Payton might consider head coach / GM, but he is not going to be on this team staff. Texter says the Cardinals are rumored to be looking to trade DeAndre Hopkins. I saw that. Jordan Schultz put that out there. I like Jordan. DeAndre Hopkins never plays. Pass. Trevor Maddich is going to join us. Last night's national championship game is the lowest rated championship game in terms of TV viewers, the lowest rated game of the college football playoff era. But I understand why. But now, everybody's narratives that are coming from Georgia absolutely blowing off the doors of TCU are driving me crazy. We will hash that out with Trevor Maddich, and we'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Want a chance to win tickets to an upcoming Preds game?
Yes.
Tune in to Robbie and Rexroad every weekday Preds game day at 8:45 for Preds Pick to Click. Guess a goal scorer and win.
I'll take Roman Yossi.
Matt Duchene.
Pick to Click is brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Visit tjandersonhomes.com to see why they are referred so often. And by Superbook Sports, voted #1 sportsbook in Vegas. Download their app today.
Preds Pick to Click.
We are 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Hey, Robbie Stanley here. And football fans, call your own plays during the NFL playoffs with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because when you bet NFL same-game parlays from now through January 16th, all customers can get up to $100 in free bets, win or lose. All you have to do is place a total of $20 or more on NFL, SGP, or SGP Plus bets during the wild card round. The more you bet, the more you'll get back in free bets. NFL same-game parlays are the perfect way to combine your bets for a chance at a larger payday. So, for instance, I like the Bengals to take down the Ravens. I like Joe Burrow over on touchdown passes, and I like Jamar Chase as an anytime touchdown scorer. But you take it any way you want to take it. Build your own or choose from one of the popular SGPs pre-built for you in FanDuel's top-rated sportsbook app. If you're new to FanDuel Sportsbook, you can also get up to $100 in free bets, win or lose, when signing up with promo code ROB. Once again, that promo code is ROB. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. Bonus issued is not withdrawable free bets. It expires 7 days after receipt. Max free bet of $100. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789.
Get in on the conversation at 615-737-1025. The Game text line is driven by Wilson County Hyundai. Online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com.
Al Gill here from my friends at Dunkin'. Warm up and feel the love with Dunkin'. Treat yourself and a loved one to a brown butter toffee hot or iced latte, which is superb paired with the bacon avocado tomato sandwich. Be sure to try the all-new stuffed biscuit bites. It's a warm biscuit dough wrapped around a mixture of bacon, scrambled egg, and cheddar cheese. Visit us at our newly remodeled Dunkin' on Briley Parkway in Nashville, or the new Dunkin' in Mount Juliet, and our other locations throughout Middle Tennessee. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Terms apply.
When you want to rock.
Let's go. Don't wait. This night's almost over. Do all the monsters come out at night? Why do we slip when we want to hide?
We are Nashville's rock station. 102.9 The Buzz.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Thinking about gas mileage. You know, changing your oil with a full synthetic oil like Valvoline Advanced can help your engine get more miles. Right now, you can get 5 quarts with an STP extended life oil filter for only $38.99. Go farther with better fuel efficiency. Get the parts you need when you need them at AutoZone or AutoZone.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Can't get enough Vanderbilt basketball?
Intercepted right all by himself for a one-hand flush.
Your home for the Commodores is 93.3 Classic Hits.
Put it up. It's good. Count it.
Join Coach Jerry Stackhouse and his team on their journey through the SEC.
Pulls a trigger. Yes, from 3.
Check out Vandy Hoops on 93.3 Classic Hits and the Classic Hits app.
Hey Nashville, this is David Price. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
I was excited about last night's championship game. Coach Shoop talked me in to thinking that TCU was going to cover and at least make it a close game. And I thought TCU was going to get blown out by Michigan. So what the hell do I know? And I was like, all right, it'd be exciting. I was shocked the game was on at 6:30 last night. Me and Ian, we could not figure that out. We're like, is that really 6:30 or is it, really a screwed up time? They say 6:30. They kicked off at 6:47. So just keep that in your back pocket for next time. But I was riding my bike last night. I bought a bike around Christmas time, and I was riding my bike, and I watched, the pregame coverage, and I saw Coach Corso pick TCU, and then I watched, the more pregame coverage, and then they finally kicked the ball off, and I rode my bike for about an hour. And in the 68 minutes that I rode the bike, that was the most interesting part of last night's game. By halftime, I turned it off. It was over. This was like Alabama, Notre Dame, but even worse, watching what we saw last night between Georgia and TCU. And I was disappointed. For some reason, I was hoping for a good game. Georgia, every big game this season, Georgia absolutely brought it except for Ohio State. With that, Trevor Maddich joins us, presented here on the program by Houston Clinic Orthopedics. Of course, Trevor, where experience matters. Trevor, what do you make? Let's start with last night's blowout. What do you make of how much Georgia beat the ever-living daylights out of TCU? Is Georgia really that much better than TCU, or did TCU just play a horrible game and Georgia played a great game and it got bad?
Yeah, it was a combination of both. TCU is not that much worse than Georgia. I mean, for goodness sake, is TCU worse than Kent State? Kent State didn't get housed by Georgia like that. Missouri almost beat Georgia, right? And so, every week you get a little bit different team. And in this week, you got a combination of two things. One was a Georgia team that really on defense played with the most reckless disregard for basic assignments that I've ever seen a team play with against Ohio State, especially when it came to keeping contained, keeping your pass rush lanes. It's a big reason why Ohio State was able to make that as much of a game as they did, was because of Georgia defensive mistakes. But those are easily correctable. And you could see them just bearing down, gritting their teeth, and getting right back into playing the dependable defense that we know them for. And they did, right? Then you look over at TCU, and TCU did not play anywhere near their best game, but part of the reason was that they didn't know how to play in a game like that. I mean, their coach, Sonny Dykes, talked at halftime and then after the game about how guys just needed to settle down and do their jobs, that guys were trying to do too much. And that's part of the problem in a championship game. You get out there thinking, I've got to do more. I've got to make more plays. I've got to really help my teammates. And all of that comes at the expense of excelling at what you're supposed to do in your 1/11th of this particular play. And Georgia was so good that every mistake that TCU made, Georgia just exploited, and it turned into a freight train rolling downhill on greased rails. So, yeah, the Georgia, are they that good? They're not that good, but they're really good, national championship good. TCU, though, made it look a lot worse than it should have been because they just didn't know how to play on a stage like that.
Trevor, when I saw Stetson Bennett run that first touchdown in, I tweeted out Stetson Bennett is a college football legend. I did not know at that point that Stetson Bennett was going to win the game with his back-to-back national title, or that he was going to end up having 6 touchdown passes. Trev, I really believe Stetson Bennett, and I don't know where he ranks in the pantheon. He didn't win the Heisman, and he shouldn't have won the Heisman. But he's a legend. I mean, 2 national championships. That's 6 touchdowns in a national championship game. I know he's 37 years old, but goodness gracious, Trevor, to me, I think that he is a college football legend. He's not the same greatness of a player like Cam Newton was at Auburn, but I will say Stetson Bennett, college football legend. Your thoughts?
But the fact that he doesn't carry the kind of body or the kind of talent that you compare to a Cam Newton, or even in Georgia, Matthew Stafford, for goodness sake, first pick in the draft. That is part of the reason why he's a legend. It's part of the reason why people will love him forever in this sport. Because, Kirk Herbstreit famously said that he probably doesn't get as much credit as he deserves because he looks like a kicker in his uniform. Max Duggan, the quarterback for TCU, walks out there all yoked, man. He looks like a football player. But when Stetson Bennett walks out there, they list him at 5'11". I very much doubt he's that tall, for goodness sake. He just doesn't look like a guy who can physically dominate anything. And he was still good enough of an individual playmaker to physically dominate. Not, run over people. But when it's time to make somebody miss, when it's time to make an accurate throw, when someone's about to hit you straight in the face on an unblocked blitz, things like that, he had the physical ability to do it. And I think because of the fact that he's not that big, yoked, super athlete that you would see walking down the mall and you'd point him out of a crowd saying, whoa, that guy looks like a legendary football player. That's part of the reason that he is a legendary football player. That and the fact that, he was a former walk-on. He was told to go away from Georgia not once but twice. Last year, he didn't even start the season. It was J.T. Daniels, the transfer from USC, and then Daniels got hurt. And they put Bennett in place of Daniels last year against really the wishes of the crowd, the fans. They didn't know who this guy was really from a standpoint of what he could really do. They just thought he's the former walk-on who transferred to a junior college, then transferred back to Georgia. And then he leads to the national championship last year, and the basic story on him was, he was along for the ride. Well, that's not true, and that wasn't fair, but that was sort of the book on him. And then this year he comes back, and a lot of people kind of wish maybe he didn't, because he's not the most physically gifted guy, and all he does is do what he did and become a Heisman finalist, like you mentioned, Jared. And then when you add it up, Stetson Bennett, when it comes to results, has to be considered the greatest quarterback in the history of Georgia football. Not the most talented, not the best NFL prospect, but no other Georgia quarterback has ever won 2 consecutive national championships, and he contributed mightily to both. And I would dare say this, as a leader of an offense, even Herschel Walker didn't lead them to 2 consecutive national championships, but Stetson Bennett did. Now, I'm not saying Bennett is better than Walker, certainly absolutely not, but I'm saying that you have to credit Bennett along those lines when you look at his body of work.
Sounds like you think he should run for Senate. Kidding. Trevor Matich is with us. I do wonder, though, from a philosophical standpoint, when you were talking about this, Trevor, about Stetson Bennett, I was wondering about, thinking about Kirby Smart's tenure at Georgia. He had Jacob Eason, #1 quarterback recruit in the country, rocket launcher of an arm. Didn't work out. He had Jake Fromm. Now, I think Jake Fromm was a high recruit, but not one of the more talented quarterbacks that Georgia has had, and they won a lot of games with Jake Fromm. Then they had Justin Fields, and they ended up playing Fromm over Fields, and Fields ended up leaving, and we know how much talent Justin Fields has. Then they brought in J.T. Daniels and all these other guys, and somehow it's this little guy that is able to carry them to 2 national championships. He's, again, what is he, like 26 years old, I think? So
yeah, he's 25.
You're normally not going to get a 25, 26-year-old quarterback, but Tennessee had one this past year. I wonder, if the philosophy of college football where everybody just, we have to get the best quarterback. We have to do this. If maybe developing your own guy who stays in your system, who leads your team, is not the way that a lot of these schools like the Ohio States and the Alabamas and the schools that really turn them out, maybe they should invest in a young guy that can be there for the long haul, like Georgia was lucky enough to have happen for them.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. It's like basketball. You've got the one and done schools like Kentucky,
sure.
Then you've got the teams like the Butlers of the world that don't populate their roster with guys that'll leave for the pros as soon as they possibly can. So they end up sticking around a little bit longer. They end up playing together longer, having more experience, and they're able to succeed that way as well. I think if you ask a coach, he'd rather have the guy with the supreme talent, have him start for 2 years for him, 2 or 3, and then have him go off to the league. But I think that's what Bennett did. Bennett was not able to succeed the way that the top talents are able to succeed. He wasn't able to overpower anybody. He did so many things well physically, but he won because he overpowered people mentally, both with his understanding of his own system and understanding of defenses, and with his preparation. I mean, he had to be smarter than you. He had to find the creases and crevices within your defense that he could attack with the skills that he had. And so that's how he did it. He was a grinder. I mean, he'd be a fantastic coach if he chose to be a coach, because he's had to learn all the small details of what makes an offense work, of what makes a quarterback successful, because he couldn't go out there like a Cam Newton and just overpower people. And I'm not saying Cam Newton didn't work hard in college, but I am saying that the way that Bennett succeeded was exactly that. And I would suggest to any college football player, any high school football player coming into college, to look at Bennett and study him, Study why he was so good. He was so good because he maximized the physical abilities that he had, which were okay. They were fine. But more than that, he maximized his understanding of the game and the application of the scheme and the technique against the opponent's scheme and the opponent's technique. And that maximization is what made it work for him. The other thing that made it work for him was his attitude towards it all. I mean, he's had a massive chip on his shoulder, which is a driving force for him. But you never heard him go out and call people out that were criticizing him. You know, last year, as nobody believed in him, he won the national championship last year. He didn't come out last year and say, yeah, all you people who didn't believe in me, you can go pound sand. Didn't do that, right? This year, he comes back and undefeated season, national championship again. And throughout the season, and especially after the game against TCU last night, Bennett had the opportunity to do the same thing. All you doubters, all you haters, in your face. He never did that, did he? He was publicly, outwardly grateful for his opportunity, grateful for his teammates, gave credit to his teammates and his coaches, and he lets people like us say all those things about the doubters, right? And that's the best way to go about it. And I would challenge any young person who's all steeped in social media and about getting into Twitter fights and all the rest of it. Look at the way Stetson Bennett did it, because if you let somebody else toot your horn, it travels a lot farther.
Trevor Maddich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics. There's one thing the media has done after Georgia's dominating win last night, Trevor, that is driving me crazy. And it's your people at ESPN, and it's driving me nuts. I want to get to that. Plus, I do wonder, I know he's not going to be drafted. At least I don't think he'll be drafted. But could Stetson Bennett play in the NFL? Like maybe even a little bit? We'll ask Trevor. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Every Wednesday at noon.
No matter the down and distance and no matter the score, they're going to give him the football.
Outkick 360's Jonathan Hutton joins Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace to talk all things Titans and NFL.
I hope that they're not throwing flags simply because the league wants to see more of them.
He's got opinions and insights on the two-tone blue.
They are not as good at wide receiver and the playmaking department.
Catch Hutton every Wednesday at noon. Presented by Blend Bar with Davidoff Cigars and by Edley's Barbecue on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
What's up, everybody? It's Michelle Knezovic for Superbook Sports, and this is your New Year's resolution: win money in 2023 with Superbook Sports. Superbook has over 3 decades of sports wagering experience in Las Vegas, so you'll get the best odds boosts anywhere as we head into the football playoffs. Plus, check out their special odds boosts and promotions at Superbook.com. Make 2023 the year when you win money from Vegas. Download the Superbook Sportsbook app and place your bets today. Visit Superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789.
Time for the Preds Report.
Presented by Newton Nissan.
Max Erz here with your Tuesday Preds Report. The Predators got their first shutout of the season last night, beating the Ottawa Senators 3-0. That's the Preds' 4th straight win, and they're now 3-0 to start this 5-game road trip. The Predators scored twice in the first period, but Philip Forsberg sealed it in the third. Forsberg on the left, shoots and scores! Philip Forsberg makes it 3-0 Preds. UC Saros made 38 saves and has now made 102 saves on 105 shots in his last 2 starts, both wins. That's pretty good for our Smashville All-Star. Next up, tomorrow night in Toronto at 6:30 against the Leafs as the Preds try and run this road trip to 4-0.
All the best car deals in Smashville start at Newton Nissan. Visit them at Newton Nissan of Gallatin or Newton Nissan South in Shelbyville.
This is Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 The Game.
Hey Nashville, TJ Anderson here. With real estate listings, you have to read between the lines, like trendy, so are man buns, or great potential, just like your ex. Must see inside, yeah, because it's a dump outside. My team at TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty is ready to help both home buyers and sellers decode the market. Oh, and if it says open floor plan, the doors are sold separately. Google TJ Anderson Homes, read our reviews, and see why we are referred for a reason. TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty, 615-432-2919.
One is smart.
This has just been a constant trend for this team.
One is funny.
That's right.
Funny looking, maybe. Chase and Michelle with Chase McCabe and Michelle Knezovic.
Are you listening?
I'm listening.
Everybody's listening.
Weekdays from 9 to 11 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. strong opinions, and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Is Kirby Smart, Paul Feinbaum, the new Nick Saban?
Kirby Smart is the king of college football. And Nick Saban is still around. He's the elder statesman. Kirby relies on him for important issues. But Nick Saban no longer runs college football. And I think that was pretty obvious last night. And it's also important to remember, Greeny, that many of Nick Saban's national championships were created in part by Kirby Smart. I know we don't like to give anyone other than Nick Saban credit, but that Alabama program has been good since Kirby Smart left. They've won 2 national championships, but they haven't been as dominant. What we saw last night was what we saw during the reign of terror under Nick Saban. That reign of terror no longer exists.
I could not believe that I heard that come out of Paul Feinbaum's mouth this morning. And I look, all due respect to Kirby in Georgia, because Mark Richt did a good job, but it was like, we want better. It's like, are you sure you're going to get better? They've gotten better. Back-to-back championships. Georgia has a great team. They've got a great system. Georgia is right now what Alabama was. But to sit there and act like Alabama's not going to be back at the top? I mean, Alabama was undefeated and won a national title 2 years ago. 2 years ago. So maybe Georgia stays around there. But, Trevor, this idea that Alabama's dead, I've heard this so many times over the years. After the kick 6, it was, here's Auburn and Alabama's dead. Then Clemson, they beat them, I think, 2 out of 3 years or 2 out of 4 years or whatever it was with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, and Alabama was dead. And then LSU, and Alabama was dead. They hadn't won a title in 2 years. And now Alabama's dead again. That's ridiculous, Trevor. And Georgia, I give them a lot of credit. It's a good program. It's a good team. Kirby's got them right there with Alabama, but I'm not putting Kirby and Kirby and Georgia ahead of Alabama, Trevor.
I think I think you have to consider that they've stepped above Alabama. I think you really do. It's going to be a good fight. Well, look at the trajectory of it. I mean, in 2017, they faced each other in the national championship game, and Georgia led in overtime when Tua Tagovailoa unleashed that magical pass, game winner to Devontae Smith, right? So the next year, Georgia's leading Alabama in the fourth quarter in the SEC championship game when Jalen Hurts comes off the bench as a backup and leads the fourth quarter late game-winning touchdown drive to beat Georgia, right? And then last year, Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship game again, but then Georgia turned around and beat them in the national championship game just a few weeks after that.
I can play that game too, Trevor. You know that game changed when Jamison Williams popped his knee on that turf.
Not just Jamison Williams, but John Mechie. In the SEC championship game, the other receiver you're talking about, John Mechie, he combined with Jamison Williams for close to 300 yards receiving. Mechie didn't play in the national championship game against Georgia, and Jamison Williams only had 65 yards before he got hurt, and that was the difference. So Georgia wins the national championship last year, but is it suspect because of those injuries, right? Well, this year Alabama didn't play Georgia, but their receiving core this year was just awful. Alabama was just flat awful, and they ended up losing 2 games on the road to teams ranked in the top 10 at the time they played them, on walk-off plays at the end of the game, last play of the game. Mm-hmm. And so does that mean Alabama is gone? No, it doesn't mean that at all. But while that was happening to Alabama, Georgia, who beat the Tide last year for the national championship, albeit maybe with an asterisk because of the Alabama injuries at receiver, this year they said, after sending 15 guys to the NFL draft, 15 off of last year's team, they go undefeated. They have a dominant performance in the national championship game, and they win their second consecutive national championship. So now the way I see it is this, not that Alabama's gone away or that Georgia is absolutely better, but Georgia just did what Alabama normally does, and that is reload and do it again. Reload and compete for a championship again. In this case, they didn't just compete, they won it. And so I would look at it this way, like it used to be that Georgia, during that time we talked about when Bama just kept beating them, Georgia was the middle sibling. They were Jan Brady. And Alabama was Marcia, right? Well, in winning the second consecutive national championship, you've got to consider now that Georgia is Marcia. They've elevated to that point, and now it's Alabama that has to prove that they can reload and get back on top. So for now, 2 consecutive national championships, you have to say that Georgia has the upper hand.
I'm not saying that Georgia, Trevor, I'm not saying that Georgia is behind Alabama. I'm just not saying that they're ahead of Alabama. They are not.
Yeah. No, they will. I would. Where? Look at the personnel groups. Both defenses very, very good, right? But
I thought Alabama's defense sucked this year.
Well, but still, they've got a lot of talent. But Alabama's defense, they did struggle for in a variety of ways for a variety of reasons. But overall, their overall talent on defense is still top tier. Offensively, though, Georgia's way ahead of Alabama at most positions. You can't say necessarily quarterback. If you are picking quarterbacks, you take Bryce Young over Stetson Bennett. But if you were stuck with Stetson Bennett, you wouldn't be upset about it, right? In that system, doing what he does. Sure. But offensive line, running back depth, tight ends, and pass catchers overall, Georgia's way ahead of Alabama right now.
But
Alabama's got a lot of catching up to do with the roster.
I think Georgia is a better team this season, just like I thought LSU in 2019 was a better team than Alabama in 2019. But that doesn't mean that LSU had passed Alabama. They had for that season, Burrow, Jefferson, Jamar Chase, that group, that's an elite group. But it doesn't mean that their program has passed Alabama. And now LSU has gone back to being what LSU is. I do think that Kirby has gotten Georgia up to a point to where success will be sustainable. But I've seen this with Clemson, I've seen it with LSU, and I'm seeing it with Georgia, where everybody so desperately wants Nick Saban and Alabama not to be the kings of college football that they sit there and they anoint somebody else the new king going forward. And every time they do that, Alabama turns around and wins a national championship. And I mean, I'm just not ready to give Georgia that title. Yeah, it's like Feinbaum in that cut right there, Trevor, being like, Kirby Smart won a lot of those national championships at Alabama. Shut up. Like Nick Saban, we're not giving Kirby Smart Nick Saban's titles. That's like Bill Belichick calls his boat 8 rings because of the 6 plus the 2 as a coordinator from the Giants. No. You've won 6 Super Bowls, and Kirby just won his 2nd national title. We are not giving him credit for Nick Saban's titles today, Trevor.
He contributed to those titles. But Nick Saban deserves the credit. Nick Saban brought in Kirby Smart. So Saban gets the head coach credit for that stuff. But the thing is, Georgia just won twice in a row. And one of those, they beat Alabama. So how can you say that he hasn't elevated his program above where Alabama is? Right now, top to bottom, this year, Georgia is the more talented team. And when you talk about talent coming back next year, I think you can make a really good case that Georgia has more returning talent. Now we'll see what the recruiting classes do. We'll see what happens in the transfer portal. But next year, I think you have to, in the way too early, rankings that you talk about who might have the best chance to be national champion next year, in the pecking order, you got to put Georgia ahead of Alabama. And he has proven, Kirby Smart has, that he is able to implement his version of what Nick Saban calls the process, guys subordinating their ego to the needs of the team, of excelling every day at what they need to do to prepare to win. Saban, that's a big thing for him, and Kirby has taken it to Georgia and put his own stamp on it. You can't deny that Kirby hasn't implemented that at the highest level with 2 consecutive national championships. And again, you look at who's coming back for that team, and some of the key additions that are coming in, some guys that have already committed from the transfer portal, et cetera. I mean, you've got Mississippi State's top wide receiver right now apparently is going to be transferring into Georgia. Missouri's top wide receiver is going to be transferring into Georgia. That's Ra Thomas and Dominic Lovett, right? And you've got others coming in as well. I mean, Georgia, they might win it for a 3rd time in a row. And if they do, what will you say, Jared?
Oh, they win it a 3rd time in a row. It might be a different discussion. But pardon me if I let them do that before we have that conversation.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. But see, this is where it's different from that 2019 LSU team. LSU did it once. LSU rose up with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and all those guys, and they had that magical season. But before and after, it wasn't that. Georgia,
Trevor, last one for you, very quickly. Last one for you. Do you think Stetson Bennett can play at all in the NFL?
Not really. I think If he's actually 5'11", I think he's got a chance to be a very good backup for a long time. If he's much shorter than that, he still would be a valuable guy on your team, maybe to be that quarterback wearing the ball cap, carrying the clipboard on the sideline, who actually has a lot to do with being a coach on the field of the starting quarterback to add his wisdom to what's going on. He could be a guy like that. And so I think that he could have a long career as a backup. As a starter, kind of hard to imagine it. But remember this, shorter quarterbacks in the league now are actually having some success. And as a shorter quarterback, he played with a massive offensive line in front of him with the Georgia Bulldogs, and he was able to find the passing lanes anyway. So I wouldn't necessarily count this guy out.
Trevor, if you had to win one game right now next week, would you rather have Malik Willis at quarterback or Stetson Bennett?
Oh, Stetson Bennett, without a question.
Trevor Matich, as always, on our program on a Tuesday. Great one, Trevor. We will talk about the NFL draft with you starting next week. Titans pick 11th. Very excited about it. Great stuff, Trev. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep, Trevor Matich joining us on the program. Georgia beat the ever-living crap out of TCU last night. I turned it off right before halftime, and I didn't turn it back on. It wasn't like I start to watch something else at halftime because I don't care about, what they're going to talk about. So I turned it off, and then I just never felt the need to turn it back on. I just didn't. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we know who some of the candidates are for the GM position of the Titans, but they have got to figure out, before they can figure out all the things you guys want to ask about, they have got to figure out the most important decision of the organization going forward. And I'm not sure if Amy even knows what she wants to do. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
You watch the game. We talk the game.
The college football playoff rankings, Tennessee, the number one team in the country.
We are the game. Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Bob's Steak and Chop House in the Omni Nashville Hotel.
Hi, this is Chef Mark at Bob's Steak and Chop House at the Omni Hotel. Looking for a romantic dinner with that special someone? Be sure to join us and try one of our signature dishes, like our Australian cold water lobster tail, flash fried to perfection, and tossed in lemon butter. Did I also mention we've won the Wine Spectator Award of Excellence 7 consecutive years? Come join us for a memorable meal here at Omni and be sure to ask for Chef Mark.
Attending an event downtown? Dine at Bob's Steak and Chop House in the Omni Nashville Hotel.
I can go from 0 to 60 way too fast.
Who knew electric vehicle owners were having so much fun?
20 or 30 years ago, I owned a gas sports car, and this car is much quicker.
It's a great, fun car to drive. When you put your foot on the accelerator, it just goes.
They're fun, they're fast, they're efficient.
Visit driveelectrictn.org to learn how you can start having fun driving an electric vehicle.
Sponsored by the East Tennessee Clean Fuels Coalition, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
Your Game Center update.
This Game Center update is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. The Tennessee Titans officially fired offensive coordinator Todd Downing on Monday afternoon. That adds one more thing on the long list of things to do for the Titans this offseason. Head coach Mike Vrabel on addressing all the uncertainty with the team.
I mean, as a player, there was always uncertainty, so as a coach, there's uncertainty in this business. It's whether there's a GM, there's an interim GM, whether there's no GM, there's uncertainty. That wouldn't change if we hired a GM tomorrow.
The Nashville Predators continued their hot streak last night as they have now won 4 games in a row following a 3-0 shutout of the Ottawa Senators. They will continue the road trip on Wednesday night in Toronto to take on the Maple Leafs. We will have pregame coverage at 5:30 and puck drop at 6:30 right here on the Preds Radio Network. The Georgia Bulldogs had no problem with TCU last night on their way to a second straight national title. And coming up at 7:30 on 93.3 Classic Hits, Vanderbilt travels to Knoxville to take on the Vols in some SEC Hoops action. This update is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. I'm Ian Safar for 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators. 102.5 and 106.3.
A gunny performance.
Do your job.
And the Tigers regain the lead.
The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Where you have a voice.
He had a competent coaching staff. You just play terrible and you keep playing.
And we have strong opinions.
What a whiny freaking crybaby response.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving. 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to Superbook Sports, live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. So I was listening to the Midday Show pretty much all day today, and I was listening to them talk about offensive coordinator candidates. And I was hearing Bill O'Brien's name, and Tim Kelly's there, and Derek believes that Tim Kelly was brought in by Mike Vrabel last year, ultimately to become the offensive coordinator maybe this year. He might be right. I don't know. But I was listening to all the different names. Pep Hamilton, because the Titans had interviewed him last time, even though they only interviewed him to account for the Rooney Rule. And Pep Hamilton's offenses have stunk. They stunk at Michigan. They stunk at the XFL or USFL or AAF or whatever the hell it was. And they stunk this year with the Texans. And all these different names that are coming up. Oh, what about Frank Reich, Jared? Do you think he'd be offensive coordinator? All kinds of names. And I get it. That's what we call coaching search season. It's the time of the year where everybody listens to the radio because they want live updates on what's going on. But it can become incredibly frustrating if you're a host because it turns into, let's go to Steve, who's up next. You know, I think they should hire Les Miles to be the head coach. You know what I mean? So I was listening to that, and it's not a bad sports radio topic by any means, but I'm not even sure the Titans can be deciding who's going to be their offensive coordinator right now because they have two really, really important decisions ahead of them. The first is obvious. It's the general manager position. Now, Amy Adams Strunk is taking her sweet time about it, and she is not afraid to do that. She said when she sat down with the AP that she'll wait until after the Super Bowl if that's how long it takes. She's said time and time again, or time and time because she's talked twice, that she wants to make sure they get the right person. And that sounds good, but it's really not how the NFL works. Matthew Stafford was traded, not officially, but unofficially traded in January of 2021. These moves happen fast. Alex Smith was traded at the Super Bowl. They don't just happen right at the start of the league year. And the two biggest questions the Titans have, the first is who is going to be the general manager and what is the power structure of the organization? Is it Vrabel has the final say? Is it the new GM has the final say? Or is it Amy is going to be more involved and she will have the final say? That if, let's say, a situation like the A.J. Brown trade comes up and the new GM wants to trade A.J. Brown or the next A.J. Brown, and Mike Vrabel doesn't want to trade A.J. Brown, is that when instead of, hey, this guy has final say on the 53, you got to let him do his job, is that when Amy comes in and says, I think we should make that move, or I don't think we should make that move? I don't know. But that's the first thing that has to get figured out. I am going to guess, without knowing this for sure, that John Robinson had it in his contract that he had final say on the 53-man roster. Most general managers try to get that in there unless they're going somewhere where they know they're not going to have it. If the coach already has it in his contract, I have final say. Mike Mayock with the Raiders was not going to get that. Gruden was the one who made the call. So they got to figure that out. That's the first thing. Because let's say that it is truly a collaborative process and Amy Adams Strunk makes the final call, shouldn't the new general manager then get a say in what kind of offense they want to run? Shouldn't a new general manager get a say in the system that they want to play with? The second thing they got to figure out before they can decide if they want to hire a coordinator is who's the quarterback. If Lamar Jackson is the quarterback, I don't want Bill O'Brien to be the coordinator. If Tom Brady is the quarterback, Bill O'Brien's the only guy I want. Because Bill O'Brien knows how to run Tom Brady's system. And so if I know it's going to be Tom Brady, then I probably can move off of Derrick Henry because I know that I'm going to have Brady throw the ball out of the backfield a bunch, and I honestly might be better off with Hilliard and somebody else paired together, and that's Brady's duo, and not Derrick Henry. But if I know I'm going to have Tom Brady as my quarterback, then I want Bill O'Brien to be my coordinator. Tim Kelly does not know Tom Brady's offense. Bill O'Brien does. If Ryan Tannehill is going to be my quarterback and Derrick Henry is going to be my running back, two things that Mike Vrabel would not commit to yesterday, then I want to run the same system I'm running right now. If the general manager is convinced that I can find my quarterback of the future with the 11th overall pick in this year's draft, or that I can move up to 7, and there is a guy right there that we are going to take, then I have to think about that when it comes to hiring an offensive coordinator. Because that's the guy who is going to touch the quarterback every day. That is the guy who is going to either set the quarterback up for success or set him up for failure. And let me say this, the quality of the offensive coordinator does matter. Now, guys like Brady and Peyton Manning, they'd be good no matter who the coordinator was. But you don't think it's a coincidence that Matt Ryan was an above-average quarterback for most of his career, an average to above-average quarterback? All of a sudden, Kyle Shanahan shows up and he's league MVP. Kyle Shanahan leaves and he goes right back to what he was? Of course not. You think it's an accident that Ryan Tannehill was a Pro Bowler, Derek Carr was an MVP candidate when they had good coordinators, and they were not when they had Todd Downing? Not an accident. So they've got to decide what system they want to run, and then they have to go get the coach to fit the system that they want, and then that coach is going to have to want the quarterback and fit and be a good marriage. It's easier to go get a coordinator than it is to get a quarterback. So I understand the whole idea of what everybody wants to know. Who's going to be the coordinator? Give me names. Give me Tim Kelly. I'll give you an example. Of all of the possible quarterbacks that are out there, there is a different offensive coordinator that I would prefer with each guy. If Ryan Tannehill is the quarterback, I'm fine with Tim Kelly. He knows Tannehill. He has a relationship with Tannehill. He knows the system. He knows what Tannehill's good at. He probably knows what Tannehill's bad at. If Tannehill is not the quarterback, and let's say Aaron Rodgers, and I don't think Aaron Rodgers is coming here, but Colin Cowherd won't stop talking about it. Let's say Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback of the Titans. Then I would hire Nathaniel Hackett to be my offensive coordinator. He worked with Aaron in Green Bay. If I decide that I want Derek Carr to be my quarterback, well, the guy I just fired might be a guy that I would go with instead because he's got a great relationship with Derek Carr. You see what I'm saying? The idea of all these different quarterbacks. The reason why Nick Sirianni is in Philadelphia, and this is the instance of getting it wrong and then ultimately being lucky enough to get it right. Nick Sirianni is in Philadelphia because the Eagles were looking to salvage the relationship with Carson Wentz after it went sour with Doug Peterson. Hiring Sirianni to be Wentz's coach ultimately did not sway Wentz to want to stay. He cried out and went to Indianapolis. So then Sirianni put in the system with Jalen Hurts. Obviously, that's worked out. But in order to do that, you have to know who's in charge. And right now, the Titans really haven't given us any indication of who's in charge. In fact, they talk about, we're going to cast a wide net. We're going to interview everybody. And right now, it looks like a very wide net. Malik Boyd of the Bills, Ian Cunningham of the Bears, Rand Carthon of the 49ers, Glenn Cook of the Browns, Quentin Harris of the Arizona Cardinals, Adam Peters of the 49ers, Monty Ossenfort and Ryan Cowden of the Titans. That's a wide net. You're telling me that all those guys have the same philosophies? Probably not. You think all those guys want Ryan Tannehill to be the quarterback? You think the 49er guys aren't sitting there thinking, hey, we get Jimmy in here. We know Jimmy. We trust Jimmy. You know, this would be who we'd want. So just know that as easy, I know, general manager, because we don't know anything about these guys and we don't know what they do. We don't know what Malik Boyd does with the Bills, how much of a part of the Bills' success he's responsible for. It's hard to get excited about that talk, but you cannot hire a coordinator until you know what system you want to run. And you cannot decide what system you want to run until you figure out who your quarterback is. And you can't decide on your quarterback until you hire a general manager if that general manager is, in fact, going to have the same amount of power as Mike Vrabel. So the Titans better hurry up because all the other teams in the league, all of them, are going to start hiring offensive coordinator candidates now. In fact, the teams that knew that they were firing their people, the teams that knew they weren't going to be in the playoffs, they were probably already figuring that out before last Sunday's games. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Amy Adams Strunk has an idea of what she wants out of the general manager. And I do not think that it actually exists. And I think this is going to end poorly for the Titans. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025, 1025-1063 The Game.
The college football season never stops. ESPN college football analyst Trevor Manich joins Stillman and Company every Tuesday at 4:30.
They've got to do what Nick Saban in Alabama has done so successfully over the last 10 years.
Presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Patients go to Houston Clinic Orthopedics after they've exhausted other pain management treatments, like physical therapy or lifestyle changes. If you suffer from chronic pain, interventional pain management may be the solution. With interventional pain management, the physicians at Houston Clinic Orthopedics use a variety of quick, minimally invasive procedures. The goal is to disrupt the pain cycle and reduce or alleviate your pain. Schedule your appointment at tn.houston.com. When experience matters, trust Houston Clinic Orthopedics.
If you missed the latest from Chase and Michelle.
The story is what's next for the Two-Tone Blue. Hello, Michelle. How you doing?
Hello, Chaser. How are you?
I'm good. I know you were in Jacksonville. You witnessed it firsthand. What was that locker room like after the game?
Yeah, it was emotional. Emotional, I think, is probably the best word. Quiet, right? So Vrabel spoke first, and then we all went into the locker room. I think if anybody's seen the videos of Jeff Simmons, he kind of encapsulated what this season has meant to the team, and he broke down a bit, talking about his injury specifically and what he's gone through this season. And then Kevin Byard too spoke really level-headed, and I think he can always be a guy that you can go to in the locker room. And he basically said, you know what, like, a lot of decisions to be made this offseason.
Chase and Michelle, weekdays from 9 to 11 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Want to kick off the new year without any credit card debt? If that sounds good to you, you can do it with Loan Pronto's Express Equity line of credit. Wipe out all those credit card bills right now. Hey, Willie Donick here. Rates are down, and it's a great move to get on more solid financial footing for the new year. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a portion of the equity you have and enjoy a rate that's a whole lot less. than what the banks charge on credit cards. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days. You can access up to 95% of your home's equity. Use that money to pay off those high-interest credit card loans of any type. Credit cards, personal loans, car loans, whatever. Consolidate everything into one easy payment. Even if you did a whole total refi last year, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program and keep your main loan intact. Call Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
Anyone want to tell me what happened?
Did you miss any of today's show?
It's okay. It's fine. Don't worry.
Subscribe to the Stillman and Company podcast on Apple, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, or by going to thegamenashville.com.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
You're listening to Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
To remain as it was with the previous GM, or are you looking for that to increase?
Well, I'm just looking to try to bring in the best people and the best players that we possibly can.
How collaborative was it?
Again, just going forward, just trying to find the best GM right now. That's the next step. Trying to work through the staff, work through the players, work through meetings. And then when they ask me to be involved, I'm comfortable and excited to be involved in the process, not about where we were or what we did.
Mike Vrabel saying, hey, whenever they want me in on this process, talking with these general manager candidates, I'll do whatever they say, which is the right thing to say publicly. Now, yesterday, the team released the committee that is going to decide on the next general manager. It'll be Amy Adams-Strunk with Kenneth Adams, also one of the owners. And I like Kenneth Adams. I like Amy Adams. Burke Nihill, team president and CEO. I like Burke, but he's a lawyer. I believe vice president. I don't know these titles. Lawyer Adolfo Birch, and another lawyer who's the general counsel, and I forget that guy's name. And so you got 3 lawyers and 2 owners, and they will pick the next general manager of the Titans. But Amy Adams-Strunk told Jim Wyatt at the team's website that she wants collaboration between the two, the coach and the general manager. She wants perfect harmony. She wants that violin being played, and she wants 2 guys to work hand in hand. And I am here to tell you that does not happen in the National Football League. It does not happen. I had Paul Kaharski come up to me a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about this, I think right around when John Robinson got fired. And he told me, that's how it works in Seattle. And I said, no, it's not. Pete Carroll has the final say in Seattle, not John Schneider. Now, John Schneider's the general manager, and I think John Schneider leads a lot of the scouting, and they've got a good relationship, but Pete Carroll is the one who makes the decisions for the football team. And how do I know this? Because Floyd Reese interviewed for that job, and in the end, Floyd said to Pete, who's going to have the final say? And Pete said, I'm going to have the final say. And Floyd said, have you ever done that before? And Pete was like, no. And he's like, that's is kind of tough. One guy always has the final say. Sometimes it is more public than other times, but in the NFL, that's the way it works. Andy Reid has the final say in Kansas City. Remember when Jerry Jones was so desperate for the Cowboys to start winning again? After Barry Switzer, after Chan Gailey, after those miserable 3 years with Dave Campo, that he went and hired Bill Parcells, and Jerry Jones for about 2 years had to stay out of it. And Jerry couldn't do that very long. So Jerry had to get back in it, and Bill Parcells was out, and Wade Phillips was in. And Wade Phillips was the ultimate doormat of a head coach, which is exactly how Jerry likes it. Just like Mike McCarthy now. He loves it. Who makes the call in Dallas? You know who makes the call in Dallas. So what ultimately is going to happen when Amy Adams-Strunk says that the coach and the general manager will report to her, what's going to happen is she is going to be more involved in the football decisions. Now, I love Amy Adams-Strunk. But I don't want her more involved in the football decisions. I don't want the owner involved in that. I don't know how many of you do, but I don't. But if it's going to be a collaborative process and they're each on equal footing, that means ultimately there's going to be one person to break the tie, and it's going to be her. That's what David Tepper does with the Carolina Panthers. How many games do they win? I believe in the NFL, you got to have the chief decision maker. Howie Roseman in Philadelphia is the chief decision maker. Andy Reid in Kansas City is the chief decision maker. The Bengals don't even have a general manager, but they don't really count because the only reason they're any good is because of Joe Burrow. But even the Ravens, John Harbaugh is not the chief decision maker there. And he's won a Super Bowl. And Eric DeCosta, Ernie DeCosta, whoever their general manager, he has the final say. Now, you don't ever hear from him, but he has the final say. Jason Light has the final say in Tampa Bay. Now, if there's a big enough problem in any of those places, then the owner somehow gets involved. Quarterback, coach, then the quarterback, the owner's involved. Sean McVay does not have final say with the Rams. Les Snead does. But Sean McVay's thinking about stepping away. Stan Kroenke's getting involved. But I don't like this idea of everybody on equal footing. I think that one guy or another has to have the final say. And I don't think Vrabel is qualified to have the final say. But I'd feel more comfortable if Vrabel did have the final say than I would be if, we're all going to play kumbaya here and it's all going to be equal and you guys are going to get along and play nice. Mike Vrabel's not a play nice guy. None of these guys that are any good are. Bill Belichick's not a play nice guy. Kyle Shanahan has it in his contract that he has final say of the roster. Mike Vrabel's not going to enjoy a collaborative process. I can tell you that. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Caleb texts into the text line, says, pretty sure general managers don't dictate who's on the coaching staff and who the coach wants on that coaching staff, in my opinion. Again, everywhere is different. Every decision is different. When the Titans, the first era, Floyd Reese had final say on football decisions. But guess what? When Jeff Fisher wanted to hire Norm Chow, he let him on the coaching staff. When Bud Adams wanted them to draft Vince Young, he wasn't going to say no. It's all on a case-by-case basis. But I guarantee you there's a lot of times. I will tell you this right now. I can speak with absolute certainty that I know coaches in the NFL and that for the last month, coaches in the NFL have been talking to general managers about jobs on staffs. And I can promise you that if the next general manager wants to run the run and shoot offense, they're not going to get a coordinator that doesn't run it. They cannot in good faith. I mean, I guess they could. Josh McDaniels hired a coaching staff for the Indianapolis Colts and didn't take the job, and Frank Reich had to coach him. So anything's possible. But in reality, it would make no sense to hire an offensive coordinator when you don't know who the quarterback is going to be. And you're not going to know who the quarterback is going to be because if you're running a collaborative process, then the general manager is going to have a say in who the quarterback is. And that's why Vrabel was very careful yesterday. He didn't commit to Tannehill. He didn't commit to Henry. He didn't commit to rebuilding or tearing it down. Why? Because he didn't want these other candidates to think that he had already had his mind made up. And then when they get the Titans general manager job or they're interviewing for the Titans general manager job, they're feeling like what they're being told on the recruiting pitch is not really what's going to happen. And he had to be very careful about that. And boy, did he walk a fine line when it came to Tannehill. He's our starting quarterback. We'll see. We'll get him healthy. A lot of guys got hurt. We'll go from there. It's a sprained ankle. Tannehill yesterday was like, yeah, I think I have a few good years left in me. I think I'll be okay. And Tannehill probably will be okay. But to think that the offensive coordinator position has nothing to do with the general manager is ridiculous. Ultimately, coaches get to pick who's on their staffs. But a lot of times it's hey, we don't really like Terry Robisky. Might want to make a change. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get back to your phones. Plus, Tim Hasselbeck talked some sense today about what the Titans should do at the quarterback position. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
This is Colton Sissons, and this is Smashville.
Feeds now, Sissons coming on from the left circle, and Colton Sissons puts it in the net.
This is the flagship of the Nashville Predators radio network. ESPN 102.5 The Game.
The Electronic Express New Year's blowout sale is going on now. Come into any of our convenient locations for the guaranteed lowest prices on all of your favorite brands like Samsung, LG, Apple, KitchenAid, Sony, and more. Electronic Express has huge savings in every department. 4K TVs, computers, appliances, housewares, gaming, and more. Save up to 40% with up to 36 months free financing. Shop great deals in-store or online at electronicexpress.com. Electronic Express. We make it happen.
Welcome to Smashville, home of your Nashville Predators. Join us at Bridgestone Arena Saturday, January 14th as your Preds take on the Buffalo Sabres. Monday, January 16th for Firefighter Appreciation Night against the Calgary Flames. And Tuesday, January 17th against the Columbus Blue Jackets. That's 3 games in 4 days. So grab your gold and get ready to cheer on the boys because there's no place like Smashville. Purchase your tickets today at NashvillePredators.com/tickets. That's NashvillePredators.com/tickets. Let's go, Preds!
When Smashville wants to rock. We are Nashville's rock station. 102.9 The Buzz.
Looking for a career with purpose or have that passion for youth development? Boys and Girls Clubs of Middle Tennessee provides a safe place where youth gain the tools to learn, lead, and reach their full potential. And that starts with you, offering competitive pay and free after-school care for employees. Learn more at bgcmt.org.
Al Gill here from my friends at Dunkin'. Warm up and feel the love with Dunkin'. Treat yourself and a loved one to a brown butter toffee hot or iced latte, which is superb paired with the bacon avocado tomato sandwich. Be sure to try the all-new stuffed biscuit bites. It's a warm biscuit dough wrapped around a mixture of bacon, scrambled egg, and cheddar cheese. Visit us at our newly remodeled Dunkin' on Briley Parkway in Nashville or the new Dunkin' in Mount Juliet and our other locations throughout Middle Tennessee. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Terms apply.
It's a new year and a new game. Robbie and Rex Road from 6 to 9.
I don't know whether to be proud of you or to tell you to leave the room. Both would be appropriate.
Chase and Michelle from 9 to 11.
Did you look at what the other teams were doing?
That's a player I want to keep an eye on.
Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace from 11 to 2.
You're the best running back in the league.
That's one you really need to win.
This is the way we were built. And Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman from 2 to 6.
Really the greatest player in the history of the team.
It's your new weekday lineup now on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey Nashville, this is Vanderbilt head coach Jerry Stackhouse. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Are you hopeful of being back here next year and being this team's starting quarterback?
Of course, yeah, I'd love to be back here, and we'll just have to see what happens. Yeah, it should be good. Obviously, I need to keep rehabbing it, but
further surgery or anything?
No, it should be good.
Oh, I don't need more surgery. You want to be back? Yes, I do. Ryan Tannehill says he'll be fine. And guess what? It's a sprained ankle. He'll be fine. For Vrabel to act like, well, we need Tannehill to get healthy, and then we'll see. Come on now. It's a sprained ankle. It's like, well, he had a headache yesterday, and so, we're not getting ready for the first game anytime soon. So, we'll have to see if that headache clears up between now and September. I think it will, if I had to take a guess. So I have said, if I owned this team And again, the number one decision is what is the power structure of the organization, and that is, who is going to be the general manager to go with Vrabel and who has more say. And right now, Amy basically says it's going to be 50-50, which means she's going to have the final vote. Okay, fine. Well, then the second question is, who's the quarterback? And there's a lot of people that I start talking about names, and people text in and they'll say, Baker Mayfield sucks, or Derek Carr sucks, or you're not going to get Tom Brady, or Aaron Rodgers isn't coming here, or all of those things. It reminds me of a story my uncle used to talk about my late grandfather, and that they used to work together, and that my uncle would go to my grandfather and he'd say, Pop, what do you want to eat? We're going to go pick up from, Burger King. We're going to go to Burger King. What do you want to eat? Oh, I don't want the chicken sandwich. I asked you what you want, not what you didn't want. And so everybody in the text line loves to always tell me about all the quarterbacks they don't want. But at some point, you're going to have to decide who you do want. And Tim Hasselbeck was asked on the midday show what he thinks the Titans should do at quarterback. And I firmly agree. Here's what Tim Hasselbeck said.
I guess I would just say this. In terms of, Ryan Tannehill, he's made a lot of money, like the last couple of years. So, just looked it up. He's due a base salary of $27 million next year. He's a starting quarterback next season. It's a $36 million cap hit. Now then you can get out, really after that. And while that sounds like an enormous amount of money, we need to remind ourselves that there are a ton of quarterbacks now making more than $40 million a year, right? So you are no longer at the top of the quarterback market when you talk about what you're paying your quarterback. And it kind of allows you to be wide open the following year. So I think he's my quarterback in 2023. I really do.
So he's saying I run it back with Tannehill. And if I own the team, that's exactly what I would do. Because my other options are pray to the sky that I can get Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. And let me say this. If I own the team and Mike Vrabel, again, not that I'm encouraging tampering because I would be suspended by the league and lose a first-round draft choice if I got caught, so I would never encourage that kind of behavior. But if Mike Vrabel knocked on the door and said Tom Brady wants to be the quarterback of the Titans, then that changes the discussion. Or if Lamar Jackson or the Ravens were to call and say that they were interested in making a deal for Lamar, now we have to discuss that. That's a little different. But if not, I'm not going to make a lateral move to Derek Carr or Baker Mayfield or any of these other guys when I've got Ryan Tannehill, who's fine. Ryan Tannehill's a good quarterback. 16th, 15th, 17th, whatever. Kyler Murray makes $46 million. Deshaun Watson makes $46.5 million. Russell Wilson makes $49 million. Aaron Rodgers makes $50 million. Ryan Tannehill has a base salary of $27 million next year. The cap's not real. The money is. And continuity actually does mean something in the NFL. Continuity in coaches, continuity in players, continuity in schemes, continuity at quarterback. How many teams competing in the playoffs have a different quarterback than they had last year? Buffalo doesn't. Kansas City doesn't. Dallas doesn't. Tampa Bay doesn't. Minnesota doesn't. Philadelphia doesn't. Buffalo doesn't. Cincinnati doesn't. Think about it. All the quarterbacks on the QB carousel. Did you notice that Jared Goff, in his second year in Detroit, actually looks like a pretty good quarterback? So keep in mind, when you're thinking about, we got to go move off of Tannehill, want to move on with Baker Mayfield or Derek Carr or Carson Wentz or Taylor Heineke, the big quarterback move of the offseason was Russell Wilson. It was the biggest blunder in recent memory. In fact, the team that traded him, instead of going with the quarterback that they acquired in the deal, Drew Lock, to be their starter, they stayed with the guy they had, Geno Smith, there in the playoffs. Daniel Jones is in the playoffs. Ryan Tannehill's fine. And so unless I can get Brady, unless I can get Rodgers, unless I can get Lamar, I'm rolling it back with Tannehill. Even if I've got my 11th overall pick and I draft a quarterback, I still would like to have Ryan Tannehill start and put that guy on the bench. The Cincinnati Bengals, the idea of, blow it up this year and go for it next year and all of that. The Cincinnati Bengals did not blow it up when they ended up with the pick that led to Joe Burrow. They went into that year with Andy Dalton as their starting quarterback. Then Andy Dalton wasn't very good, and he got hurt, and then they benched him for Ryan Finley because once they realized they were terrible, they decided to tank. And then they got Joe Burrow. But they didn't walk into that year saying blow it up. They just got lucky enough to be that bad. Hell, you didn't try to be bad this year, and you're picking 11th. The other thing Tim said that I think is another fair comparison is he said that the Titans reset needs to look more like another team in the NFL, and I actually agree with the team that he picks.
The team I think I would look at and say, all right, well, how have they handled some of these situations would be the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings fired their head coach. They hired a new coach. They were in a situation where I think a lot of people thought, well, listen, you're getting older at certain spots. You're getting older at pass rusher. You're getting older, in the secondary. You have a quarterback that a lot of people think isn't good enough to go win it all. What they've won 12 games this year.
I mean, he's saying, look, everybody said Minnesota wasn't any good, and that Cousins was what he was. They were a playoff team. Remember when Kirk Cousins got there? The Minnesota Vikings had been to the NFC Championship game with Case Keenum at quarterback. They thought their team was so good that they were one Kirk Cousins away from winning the Super Bowl. They brought in Kirk Cousins. They went to the playoffs. They didn't go to the playoffs. They went to the playoffs. They didn't go to the playoffs 2 years in a row. They fired Rick Spielman, the general manager, who I actually think did a pretty good job, and Mike Zimmer, the coach, and it was time for Zimmer to go. Everybody in America is like, time for Kirk Cousins to go. You can't win with him. He stinks. He's this. He's that. Kirk Cousins is playing this weekend, and Minnesota won a bunch of games. And that's where the Titans are. You're not Joe Burrow, and you're not getting Joe Burrow. So what's better than what you have now? So I agree with Tim Hasselbeck. I say run it back with Tannehill. I say give this group another chance. Try to reinforce what's already there. And if you go 8-9 next year with that group, then it's time. Then it's time to think about the future. Then it's time to move off, go with a bridge quarterback like the Falcons did this year, lose a bunch of games, and pray one day you'll be better. Jason has been waiting patiently. 615-737-1025. Jason, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, Jared, you're right on the money. All our time and effort should be focused in that offensive line in front of Tannehill. If you look at the playoff teams that are going to be playing in upcoming games, you got, I know, I checked it out. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's 4 or 5 that are in the top 10. The others don't rank any lower than, I think, 14th. And the only top offensive line that was ranked in the top 10 that got knocked out of the playoffs lost their quarterback, and that was the Miami Dolphins. If we don't correct that offensive line, it doesn't matter who we put, but we could put Aaron Rodgers.
Playoffs, and their offensive line is horrible.
No, actually, they're ranked second.
Who's doing the ranking?
I pulled it up on the ESPN website because I wanted to see how many offensive lines were the top offensive lines that were in the playoffs.
I can guarantee you the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do not have the second best offensive line in the NFL. I would bet my house that what you looked at was not dated this year.
Well, all I'm saying is we all know the problem with the Tennessee Titans, and it's those guys up front, and it has been for the last couple of seasons. Looking back, I mean, we have a tight end now that I think we can count on, and that's one of Tannehill's safety blankets. That's when he was at his best.
Sure, but now that guy's a free agent, so you got to figure that out. But going back to the line, thank you for the call. Let me say this about the offensive line, because everybody commented. I have probably gotten, over the last 3 days, 800 phone calls about the offensive line. Everybody hates their offensive line, except for Philadelphia. Philadelphia's got a good offensive line. Cincinnati hates their offensive line. Actually, I think Kansas City likes their offensive line, and Dallas likes their offensive line. Everybody else's offensive line's terrible. Tampa Bay's offensive line is horrible. Cincinnati's offensive line, awful. Buffalo's offensive line, substandard. Everybody's offensive line stinks. Your offensive line just happened to stink more than everybody else's. The offensive line will be okay. It won't be easy, and it won't be cheap. But the Titans had a horrible offensive line in 2015, and John Robinson came in and drafted Jack Conklin, and he turned around and he signed Ben Jones, and they claimed Josh Klein off waivers, and they were fine with Quentin Spain and Taylor Lewan. They were fine. They weren't perfect, but they were fine. This team will probably re-sign Nate Davis, and, they'll have Ben Jones, and they'll probably add some guys as well. But I don't know where that guy found those rankings. But the Buccaneers' offensive line is not second in the NFL. If anybody has watched a Bucs game, Brady hates that line. It's all backups. I don't know where that man got that info from. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Texter says, I think he was talking about Chig and not Hooper. Chig Okonkwo right now is a specialty player. He's not a starting tight end. Not yet. Could he develop into one? Sure. Do you bank on that going into next season? No, you do not. Coming up next, it is by far the most ridiculous claim I have heard yet. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. Those guys take fantastic care of my home, and I promise you that they will do the exact same for you. Just go right on your phone, happyhiller.com. If you've got something wrong, they will do a great job. I know this because I've been using Hiller for years. So kick off the new year with new upgrades for your home. This month, when you buy something you need for your home, my friends at Hiller will give you something you want. Pick your prize and get a free 55-inch TV, an Apple iPad, a Solo stove, or a Nintendo Switch when you purchase a new whole home generator or select new HVAC systems. Or get a free 55-inch TV, a Nintendo Switch, or Solo stove when you upgrade to a new tankless water heater. There's no better time to take care of your necessary home replacements than right now. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, proud supporters of the Tennessee Volunteers, the Vanderbilt Commodores, and the Nashville Predators. Hiller, call the Happy Face truck today.
The sports talk doesn't end on Friday. Join Michelle Knezovic and Junie Riddle for Michelle and Junie.
Have they truly been tested yet?
I really want this to be a good game.
Michelle and Junie, every Saturday morning at 9. Presented by Superbook Sports and the Nashville Gem Company.
I think Junie and I are going to go hit breakfast/brunch there after the show.
On 102.5 and 106.3, The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey guys, the new year is here! And for many of us, that means making resolutions to get healthier and in better shape. But if you don't have that youthful energy, if you aren't sleeping well, if you feel like you're walking around in a fog all day, just resolving to get out of bed can be tough, let alone getting back in the gym. But you should know that there are many men feeling this way in these modern times, because low testosterone is affecting more men than ever. And low T can cause all kinds of issues like a reduced sex drive, poor sleep patterns, general fatigue, ineffective workouts. It can even contribute to ED. But the good news is that the medical team at the Tennessee Men's Clinic are experts in treating low T. Many men have experienced life-changing results. Testosterone therapy can help increase energy, workouts, make you feel more rested, and enjoy a greater sex drive too. So make a resolution to find that guy you used to be. Call the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Your initial visit is just $99 and includes a medical consult and testosterone panel. Call 615-208-9090 or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Visit our website to learn more, including side effects. Treatment sex drive results vary.
When you want all the
going in and the score, blast the score. He wrist one, they score.
And don't forget the
oh, what a stop! Sliding across to make the save. The backhander, nice stop.
When all you want is Smashville, we have you covered. Hear every Predators game right here. We are your home for Smashville. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
More than 95% of people incarcerated will come home like I did. I'm William Arnold. director of the new Tennessee Office of Reentry. When they come home, we want to be ready to help remove barriers to employment. It's okay if you've been incarcerated or justice involved. Help is available. Go to tnworkready.com or visit your local American Job Center.
Brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
tnworkready.com.
A show that lives and breathes sports.
Focus in, focus in, focus in.
From the SEC.
Credit to the Alabamas, the Georgias, and the Ohio States of the world.
To the Preds.
They've been in a lot of really tight games, but they're not winning enough of them.
To the Titans.
He's talking about what this franchise has built over the years.
Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace.
What is this? Check it out.
Weekdays from 11 to 2 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Strong opinions and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company, Jordan Schultz put out there that the Arizona Cardinals are interested in trading DeAndre Hopkins. They don't have a general manager or a coach right now, but owner Michael Bidwell wants to get rid of DeAndre Hopkins. And so they're telling these people that are interviewing for the GM positions, hey, we want you to be the general manager of the Arizona Cardinals. We also want you to trade DeAndre Hopkins. And I've noticed this because people have texted into the text line, Jared, what about going out and getting DeAndre Hopkins? What do you think about that? All right, bunch of different thoughts here. First and foremost, you don't know who your general manager is. So you have no idea if that general manager is going to want DeAndre Hopkins. That's number one. Number two, you don't know if you're rebuilding. If you're rebuilding, trading for a 31-year-old wide receiver is not a good idea. Number three, you don't know who your offensive coordinator is. If your offensive coordinator is Cliff Kingsbury and he does run your system and he does have a relationship with Mike Vrabel, they played together in New England. If your offensive coordinator is Cliff Kingsbury, then you probably wait and you ask Cliff what he thinks because he would know. Fourth, there's a reason the Arizona Cardinals are trying to move off of DeAndre Hopkins. Fifth, you guys want an old injured receiver again? DeAndre Hopkins played 9 games this year. And I know people will say, but Jared, he was suspended. Why was he suspended? PED usage. He didn't start playing until week 7. A lot of good that will do you. He also missed week 13 this season. DeAndre Hopkins only played in 9 games. Now, he had some games where he caught 10 passes, 12 passes, 10 passes, but at $19 million, I'm going to get a moody, off-injured, old, expensive wide receiver. When's the last time you all clamored and said, oh, Jared, we have to have this old, moody, off-injured wide receiver? You traded for Julio Jones. It got the last guy fired. Julio's stats the year before the Titans traded for him. Guess how many games Julio played in? Ian, you want to guess how many games Julio played in?
This season?
No, the year before they traded for
him. 7.
9 games, just like DeAndre Hopkins. You want to guess how old Julio was when the Titans decided to trade for Julio?
Same age as DeAndre?
31. So you're basically asking the DeAndre Hopkins crew, he's got, and you know I don't believe in the salary cap, so I don't care about the money, but it's $19 million. And Arizona, when they say they're going to try to trade DeAndre Hopkins, they're going to try to put the wool over someone's eyes like they did, like Atlanta did with the Titans, and have somebody pay a premium pick, and not just a premium pick, but also money. And then they are going to try to rid themselves of DeAndre Hopkins. There's a reason that they want to trade DeAndre Hopkins. Because if they can't, they're probably going to release him. And I know Bill O'Brien took a bunch of crap for trading DeAndre Hopkins because they got a bad running back in return, an off-injured running back. But if you look at the stats, you can argue that Brandon Cooks, with whom they've paid a significant amount of money less to and traded for, after DeAndre Hopkins has actually been a more productive wide receiver than DeAndre Hopkins in Arizona because DeAndre Hopkins has been hurt so much and suspended. 615-737-1025. So I just want to stop that right now. Somebody did text into the text line and said that caller who said that Tampa Bay has the second best offensive line in the NFL, apparently there's some ESPN article that says that Tampa Bay has the second best offensive line in the NFL. I do not care. I do not care whatever some analytic website says. You know how I feel about Pro Football Focus. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line is terrible. In fact, not only are they terrible, but this reminds me of Pro Football Focus saying that David Quessenberry was the best right tackle in 2021. So last night, 615-737-1025. So last night, Georgia just absolutely curb stomped TCU. I turned it off right before halftime, and I was still stunned when I clicked ESPN.com to see what the final score was, and I saw 65-7, and I saw that Stetson Bennett had 6 touchdowns, and then I saw the little video on the ESPN page where I clicked it, which was Stetson Bennett's walk-off, and I looked down and saw that there was 10 minutes left in the game when they pulled Stetson Bennett out for his curtain call, and I'm like, wow, that is as big of a butt kicking as you can give somebody. I mean, that's like TCU good season, but damn, you got embarrassed. And so I woke up this morning to all of the talking heads on ESPN trying to figure out to have some kind of hot take that's like, okay, here's our big take now that we've got to talk about this national championship game that everybody turned off at halftime. And here it is, courtesy of Paul Feinbaum.
Is Kirby Smart, Paul Feinbaum, the new Nick Saban?
Kirby Smart is the king of college football. And Nick Saban is still around. He's the elder statesman. Kirby relies on him for important issues. But Nick Saban no longer runs college football. And I think that was pretty obvious last night. And it's also important to remember, Greeny, that many of Nick Saban's national championships were created in part by Kirby Smart. I know we don't like to give anyone other than Nick Saban credit, but that Alabama program has been good since Kirby Smart left. They've won 2 national championships, but they haven't been as dominant. What we saw last night was what we saw during the reign of terror under Nick Saban. That reign of terror no longer exists.
Oh, so now Kirby Smart and Georgia, they're better than Alabama. Really? The idea of, hey, now that Kirby's in Georgia, let's not count Alabama's other national championships because Kirby Smart was a part of those, not Nick Saban. Let's give the credit to Kirby, as Paul Feinbaum said, and all Alabama has done since Kirby left Alabama is won 2 national titles. What's that? Ian, how many national titles has Georgia won under Kirby?
I believe just 2.
Okay. So here we are because Georgia won last night, and now we're saying Nick Saban is no longer the king of college football. Sure. I've heard that. I've heard that so many times. I remember Clemson won that first national championship, and Dabo Swinney celebrated, and then Clemson won the second one. And if you remember that game in San Francisco, how bad Clemson beat Alabama by, it was a put your hands over your eyes, you don't even want to look. And Alabama was dead. And the next year, Alabama didn't even make the playoff because LSU won the national championship. And so now Clemson was ahead of Alabama, and LSU was ahead of Alabama. And guess what? Clemson has stunk ever since then, and LSU's already fired their coach. I get it. Kirby has taken what all these other Nick Saban assistants have not been able to do. What Jeremy Pruitt and Will Muschamp and every single one of them, what they're not able to do is exactly, whether it's Lane Kiffin or Sark or whomever, is they have never been able to install the Alabama program somewhere else in the SEC. Kirby has done that. Georgia is the Alabama of the SEC East. But they have not passed Alabama just because they won last night. Sorry, Saban will reload, Georgia will reload, and we'll see it on the football field. But I don't know about you guys. I am not counting out Nick Saban. Meanwhile, for the boohoo Malik Willis crew, we had Trevor Mattich on earlier today, and I asked, if you had to win an NFL game right now, who would you rather have, Stetson Bennett or Malik Willis? Stetson Bennett's probably not even going to get drafted. Here's what Trevor said. Would you rather have Malik Willis at quarterback or Stetson Bennett?
Oh, Stetson Bennett, without a question.
Amazing. That's it for us. We're out of here. Preds Insiders. Preds are hot. They won again last night. That's next. Stillman and Company. We'll see y'all tomorrow, too.